Thank you. I will call to order this special meeting of the Planning Commission for the City of San Clemente on Wednesday, July 24th, 2020 at 5 p.m. in the City Council chambers. Commissioner McCann's going to lead us in the pledge tonight. If you could all join us.
Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. We have two absences. We have Commissioner Davis and Chair Pro Tem McCacken are both absent. All other commissioners are present. Special orders of business, none. That takes us to item 5 minutes. So we have the minutes from our regular meeting of June 5th. We'll take that one first. Any comments, revisions? Open to a motion.
I move approval of the minutes of the regular Planning Commission meeting of June 5th.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner McCann, seconded by Vice Chair Camp. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous? And then we also have our special meeting from June 26th, the meeting minutes from those. Any comments there? We all good with those? Okay.
I move approval of the minutes of the special meeting of the Planning Commission on June 26th.
I second.
Great. Motion by Commissioner McCann, seconded by Vice Chair Camp. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. Thank you very much for moving us through the minutes. Takes us to item 6, oral communications. This is any member of the audience that would like to address the Planning Commission on any item not on the agenda. This would be their time to do that. Do we have anyone wanting to make a public comment? Seeing none and having no requests for that. Consent calendar is number 7. We have none on our consent. So that takes us to item 8. We have 3 public hearings tonight. The first one is a continuation of the public hearing for project 23-083, the Sea Cliff Hotel and Restaurant at 402 Pasadena Court. And that is to consider the development of an 11-unit boutique motel and restaurant with 25 outdoor seats at a historic property located at 402 Pasadena Court within the Pier Bowl. So with that, we have our staff member, David Carrello. Welcome, David. How are you?
Yes, good, thank you.
Take it away.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair, members of the Commission. So like stated, this project has been reviewed previously. I'll walk us through the review process that this project has gone through. It's been in review for over a year. Back in June of last year, it went through the first design review subcommittee review, followed by the second last year in August. And Planning Commission on June 5th, where the project was continued. And that takes us to today, July 24th, this Planning Commission special meeting. So at the June 5th Planning Commission meeting, we did receive a number of public comments that are listed here on the screen. There were both concerns and support towards the project. The first one noted is the noise impacts from events from such as weddings and concerts. We had concerns with traffic and parking impacts along Pasadena Court from 5 parking spaces that were on Pasadena Court. I'll go more into detail in that area in the coming slides. Again, on the parking impacts, there were also concerns on that due to a curb height current condition on Pasadena Court that's pretty tall and doesn't allow vehicle doors to be completely open when parked along the curb, which then influences the vehicles to be parked closer to the center. So then that street is already a narrow street, so that further reduces the available width for vehicles to drive through. There were slope stability impacts concerns that had been repeated throughout the process for this project. There was also a comment on the geotechnical report provided in the previous staff report that it was a short version. In response, staff did include the longer version of that geotechnical assessment report, and it's available in the staff report and in the website as well. There was a comment that more environmental review is needed for the project. There's a desire also to keep a low wall on Pasadena courts, which again I'll cover in the coming slides. There were concerns with construction-related impacts, active code violations. Staff is aware of current landscaping along Pasadena Court that is overgrown or over the height limit. In this area, it's 42 inches. We've been notified that some landscaping considered a hedge is above the 42-inch height limit. So there is no current active code case, but the applicant is aware that this must be addressed and the landscaping has to be trimmed. And further, the landscaping for the entire property will be reviewed under this project as well. Comments in support of the project, there were comments that the design is compatible with the city, that the project is attractive, and the project enhances the appearable. So after receiving the public comments, the Planning Commission provided some direction to staff and the applicants for changes to the site plan, one being the relocation of the 5 parking spaces off Pasadena Court into the garage. And in doing that, that would require reconstruction of the fountain that you see in the yard. So previously, the first design had limited parking within the garage because the underground portion of the fountain was not to be interrupted in order to preserve it in place. In this case, the part of the direction was to provide a memo explaining how the reconstruction of the fountain will remain in compliance with the Secretary of Interior standards. And also, there was direction to consider changes or improvements along Pasadena Court regarding the width and the curb height, the street width and curb height. So in addition, there were also conditions that the commission directed staff to consider, including in the resolution. One of them is a bond requirement. So the condition number 3.9 addresses this one. There's some improvements such as grading and frontage improvements and sidewalk improvements that will require a bond. We do have Zach Ponton from engineering available if we have any questions on that one specific bullet point. There was also conditions that were asked to be considered regarding the garage security and lighting impacts. So there was a comment that a garage gate or vehicle gate be considered, and there were some concerns from the engineering side with the gate being in place. In the moments where the gate is closed and you need a access code to get in, there may be some backup of vehicles that would cause some obstruction of sidewalk going into the streets as well. So at the moment, there is a condition. We're not requiring that the gate be installed, but there is a condition that in the event this is considered, that it requires city planner and city engineer approval. Regarding the lighting impacts, we did add a condition. I'm moving ahead here. That'll be condition 4.22, which will require a photometric plan to be submitted and approved by planning when the project is going through the building permit process. There was also a condition that was asked to be added around the construction monitoring of the fountain, and that's again addressed in condition 4.14. Other conditions, as we see here on the screen, were related to the construction management. One specific comment was to consider adding inclinometers, and that was included in the condition. The condition states that a construction management plan be provided and that it address or include the use of inclinometers. Additional signage to assist with parking management. This has also been addressed in the resolution. So the way we broke this down was to provide some signage that helps visitors understand which spaces are assigned for specific uses. So we have you'll see that we have 2 tandem spaces that have been conditioned to be for employee use only to facilitate the operation of the tandem element of it. And then we have 11 spaces for the motel, and then the remaining spaces would be for other visitors of the site, for the restaurant or the public view deck, for example. And then lastly, there was a desire to add a condition restricting the operation of special events, also including noise and amplified sound. And we can go more into detail during the discussion on that one. So in the staff report, attachment 1 includes the resolution to easily read what's new. The text in red are the conditions that were added. And then within the findings portions, there's also additional text, minor additional text to reflect the current design of the 5 parking spaces being removed or relocated to the garage. So moving on to the revised project. So this is the previous design that was presented at Planning Commission on June 5th. Here we see the 5 parking spaces off Pasadena Court. And here is the new design. So what that does is there's 3 bullets here. So the first one is the wall, the low garden wall on Pasadena Court will be maintained. This is the wall that the neighbors were addressing and expressed concern that it would be removed and a desire to keep it. So the other change would be a redesign of the spa or expansion of the spa area. And then again, you don't see the parking spaces here anymore. So now moving on to the garage level, this is the previous design. We see highlighted in red where the shoring was around the fountain in order to protect it in place. So that limited the amount of parking to be provided in the garage. So given commission direction, the applicants considered that, and they provided the GPA memo, which is also provided in the staff report, that concluded that there is no substantial adverse change to the property in terms of its significance as a historic property, and concluded that it is compliant with the standards, and that's in attachment 3. And here we see the new layout of the garage level, which includes the new 5 parking spaces in the clouded area. There were other elements that were changed and added here. At the very top, there was a lift provided, an accessible lift per building and safety code requirements. The office was relocated from the existing garage to within the new garage, and the bike parking was swapped. Basically, the bike parking and the office swapped spaces. I'm going to hand it over to Zach Ponson to go over some elements of his review regarding the new design at the garage level.
Good evening, Commissioners. Zach Ponson, your Assistant City Engineer. Go over a couple of the engineering changes. The 5 stalls that you saw on the previous slide, maybe we can go back on the previous slide. The 5 stalls are on the left back there below where the fountain was. Technically, our engineering standards do not like the vehicles back out more than 30 feet. And so those vehicles have a hard time turning around on site, so therefore they'll be doing 3-point turns to get out. So we put a condition of approval in there to have all those stalls marked, please turn around on site, so that you're heading out of the garage head first, since they're exceeding that 30 feet. We also want to have those stalls, obviously the tandem would be employees instead of hotel guests or something like that, so they can work together to see who parks there. The 3 stalls next to it, I actually expect will assign to the hotel guest, not restaurant guests. So the hotel guest will be a little bit more familiar coming and going over a weekend to also turn around on site. With that, on one of the other conditions that kind of came up, or one of the other comments that came up during the previous hearing was some of the seepage out of one of the existing walls along Victoria. There's 3 sub-drains that outlet right onto the public sidewalk. There is some staining there, and it does look like those are actually pretty active weep holes. So what we came up with is a condition that they'll add like a little trench grate along the bottom there. And the developer's already modifying that sidewalk and that tile in that area in order to get the new parking stall along the street, so it shouldn't be a big impact to them. It'll just be a simple little 4-inch trench grate along right below those drains, and then they'll come out the curb face. So we added a condition of approval for that, knowing that public comment came up. We did look at some of the other comments that came up along the Pasadena Court. It's actually Cazador, which turns and gets very narrow there. We met again with OCFA. Although OCFA will be serving the site from Victoria, they still had some concerns from serving the neighborhood through that narrow street. Working with them and looking at the site and doing several measurements, I do think it would be a good idea. We're already redoing the curb and gutter. There's about 50 feet, about 2 car lengths, where if we can widen it, it's going to be 0 on each side, and it'll be just about couple feet. And that'll actually gain us quite a bit of room to get through there right now for that area. It could mean couple little tweaks to the landscape plan, but I think it doesn't impact very much on that landscape plan. So the previous condition in the report already had us working with the curb and gutter shall be completed to the satisfaction of the city engineer, I believe it was how it was worded. So we kept that condition as it was. But during plan check, we'll probably have them widen it just slightly for about 50 feet where those 2 cars are parked across the street. And that way those 2 stalls across the street can still remain. Otherwise, those would be at risk and should probably be removed. A lot of the area is non-standard to today's standards. That's common throughout a lot of San Clemente west of the 5 freeway. The sidewalk will be done along the Cazador and Pasadena Court. Really from the Pasadena Court, if you go back on that other slide, Pasadena Court, yeah, that one right in front of that wall doesn't have a sidewalk. So we will be adding a sidewalk and new curb and gutter in front of that wall. So it'll have a nicer place for somebody to stand and actually be able to see there. And then that sidewalk would meander as it's seen along here to the right and eventually kind of go a little bit off that line where it bows down to that curve. That'll be more of a straight line. With that, I'm available if there's questions after the presentation.
Thank you, Zach. So in conclusion, staff has used Class 1, 31, and 32 as the CEQA categorical exemptions that apply to this project. Also, and has determined that no further environmental review is needed, given that the previous 2019 Pier Bowl specific plan amendment, which included an EIR addendum to the general plan, included this type of use in that review. So again, the project is in compliance with the coastal land use plan, the general plan, the Pier Bowl specific plan, the zoning ordinance, and the Secretary of Interior standards. Therefore, staff recommends that the Planning Commission determine the project categorically exempt from CEQA pursuant to Class 1, 31, and 32, and approve the project subject to conditions of approval, including the recommended supplemental conditions. So there's two conditions on the screen here. The first one relates to public access signage for the public view deck. This is to clarify the hours of use of that area, and also to make it clear that the Orange County Sheriff's Department can enforce that if there's any misuse of the area, the public view deck. And the second bullet point is the one that Zach Ponson was referring to regarding the trench drains along Victoria. I'll also note too that staff did add condition 4.24 with the intent to address the overheight landscaping occurring at the moment, and to prevent that from happening in the future. So that led to a height plane limit to be approved by the city planner during the building permit process. What that would look like, if we look at the image, there's a line that we would agree on, that no tree would be able to be planted that would have the potential to grow beyond that line. The applicant did voice concerns with this condition. They don't support it. At the same time, staff is also okay with removing the condition if the commission would like to remove it, given that we still have an opportunity to address height of landscaping during the building permit process using the zoning code. So that concludes my presentation. Both staff and the applicant are available for any questions.
David and Zach, thank you for your staff report tonight and all the work you guys have been doing on it since our last meeting. Are there quick questions before we bring up the applicant?
I've got a quick one.
All right, Vice Chair Camp.
What is the reluctance to accept this landscape height limitation by the applicant? I guess, did they tell you, or do we need to ask them?
Jim, do you want to add?
Why don't we, is
Yeah,
that
we
your
can-
only
we can
question?
wait.
Yeah, why don't you incorporate that into your comments, Jim? Did you have anything else? Okay. All right, the next step in our process before public comment, and by the way, I have 5 speaker cards, so if anyone else wants to speak, please bring that up. But before we get to public comment, we do provide the applicant with 10 minutes to provide their report as well. So Jim Holloway, are you going to do that?
We don't need 10 minutes.
Okay.
We don't have any comments at this time. We'll respond to questions as they come up. You know, if the public makes comments, we might want to respond to that. And we would like very much to get a unanimous approval so we can move on to coastal commission. And we'd like 90 seconds after your unanimous approval of our project. That's it.
Okay. Jim, thanks for that. I'm going to recognize now members of the audience that want to speak. And when I call your name, if you can just come on up to the front here. You're going to have 3 minutes. Tamara here is going to work the timer, and that's just so that everybody gets the same amount of time, so the process is fair. And so I'm going to call 3 names to get us started. John Borland, followed by Scott Potter, followed by Jill Amaretto. So John, you'll lead us off when you're ready, followed by Scott, and then Jill.
Good evening. I'm John Boland. I'm a part-time resident in San Clemente. I spoke at the last planning meeting, and honestly, I was pretty disheartened by the whole process last meeting. I felt you guys were very anxious to approve the project and, in my opinion, denied a serious debate about the viability of the project. And I think only because of the public's constant vocal objections to items as we were discussing late into the night, did the project actually get delayed because of that? In my opinion, the home is a historical home, and the gardens, and, the applicant knew what they were buying at the time. And, the project should be left as the historical property that it is, and, enjoyed by the public. All other homes in the area, of this era are required to be saved and be enjoyed for what they are. And I think there's a rush to approve this project, as I've got a feeling we'll undoubtedly see tonight. I also believe that there should be environmental impact study for the project, and clearly that's not going to happen. In your words, in the last meeting, this is the largest project of your tenure, and I think you need to slow down and really look at the impacts of this project. In my opinion, the project's been fast-tracked, and the project shouldn't even be considered tonight because of the ongoing violations which code enforcement and David continued to overlook because the project is in the middle of a submittal. Hey, this is grounds to not even look at the project because there's ongoing violations. Why are we turning our head? Why are we waiting to see if he's going to do this work? Hey, cut the hedge. It's required. It's oversized. But instead, we don't even write him up for it because it's just this ongoing situation. He was made to trim them once before in another part of this process, but instead, we're just going to turn our head, and we're going to ignore this ongoing problem. The project is a mirror image of Casa Romantica on the slopes, and there's we all know what's going on over there, and this continued failures are happening on this side at Driftwoods, down below at the Beachcomber. There's failures going on. The site is failing, as you see in the soils report. The walls are failing. You're opening up a can of worms, and I think the project should be stopped, and I think this thing should be looked at more seriously. I would like to be able to continue. I have a few more things, and at the last meeting, everybody
Really can't
spoke.
let you do that, because then I have to give everyone extra time. I have to keep it fair.
It
I
wasn't fair
apologize.
last meeting, I'll tell you that. It was even requested
John,
that it was.
thank you for your comments
It was
tonight.
requested that it opened back up, and you didn't open it back up. You said you did, but you didn't open it back up.
Thank you
So
very much for your
shame on
comments.
you.
Scott Potter, followed by Jill Almorato.
Hello, I'm Scott Potter. I'm actually representing a couple of homeowners on Pasadena Court and Cazador, so excuse me if I skip around a little bit. I'm kind of going through a couple different notes here. In the report that we received, under the heading Pasadena Court on-street parking, the Orange County Fire Authority noted the current right-of-way width for Cazador Lane and Pasadena Court are non-conforming to their current standards for right-of-way width. And this homeowner is asking if there's any other changes that the Planning Commission can consider during this process that can be fixed now to help this non-conforming issues. Can the curbs, not just going forward on Cazador, but also back on Cazador, be moved in to widen the street to allow access for emergency vehicles and right-of-way? Also, it's currently no parking throughout the Pasadena Court. If you're there 4th of July or any other big weekend, people start parking where they can. Is this something where we can address now, where we can simply paint the curbs red around that area to further provide signage besides just the signs that get hidden by hedges or whatnot? Yeah, that's the main thing. They really want to make sure that they have emergency vehicle right away. We appreciate the addressing of the noise and potential noise violations. Something was said after public comment last time that got us a little perked up, that there might be, and I'm sorry if I'm misquoting this, but I thought we heard that there might be up to 26 special use permits allowed inside the conditions, which is basically every other week that a function could be held there under special use. Is that the case? Is it not? If so, how did it get to that 26? Can it be reduced? And then parking is obviously the big thing. We appreciate the redrawing everything and getting that parking off of Pasadena Court and underneath. However, We continue to think that even though it might be per code, with 11 hotel units, 25-seat bar restaurant, employees and vendors, the parking just doesn't seem practically enough, even though it might be enough per code. And then on the drawings and some of the other stuff, I couldn't really make out. There's currently 2 spots between Seacliff and Beachcomber. Looks like the access might take away one or both of those spots to pull into the underground parking. Are those staying? Are we losing those public spots as well? And then the delivery to the driveway, just wondering about the logistics and the length of those delivery trucks. That currently, that driveway is pretty small. I talked to some restaurant owners, and they thought logistically that'd be a problem, that even shorter delivery trucks would be hanging into Victoria and/or blocking access to the underground parking. So that was a lot, but it's my time, so thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Jill Amarato, followed by Jerry Laidlaw, followed by Wayne Eggleston.
Good evening. My name is Jill Amarato, and I am kind of surprised that this has not had to have an environmental impact report, because this is pretty large. And to not have that report is concerning, because it's parking, it's digging, it's sliding, it's a huge impact. So we really should have an environmental impact report. It was also brought to my attention when I was investigating things that the water pressure from that project affects the entire street above. So I think we should look into the water pressure that's going to affect our properties above this project. Code violations, John's already gone into that. I'm not going to dwell on the thing, because they are, I'm shocked that there's no code violations on file, because there were, and how they got removed, I don't know, because they're still violated. The story poles, do you know what those are? Story poles are to show the height, so I think we should have story poles so we can all see where the height of everything is. The illegally planted hedge should be removed before you guys permit this thing. The door on Pasadena Court should only be used for private. That's because we are a residential street, and that door should only be for private use and not for hotel use. And I'd like to go into, I had a historic home. When I bought it 10 years ago, I was told, keep it historic. I couldn't do anything to my house. Anything, hardly. Try to change windows, stairs, whatever. And across the street, I was assured that was a historic house too. And then suddenly, underneath our noses, we got zoning changed. And everything changed. I guess I built my house a little too late before zoning got changed. So that really angers me, that you're doing this around a historic house when we have this town that's really into the historic preservation, that you would surround this with this building. And there's not that many people here tonight, because when we were walking up last week, we had people intimidating us that were friends and workers for the applicant. And I had people that were afraid to come tonight because things were said to them by the applicant's wife, for one, who addressed problems with them and code violations and noise at another property they had. And she came here, not at my behest. I was surprised she was here. But she heard the Jewish Center, and all you guys were concerned about, were they nice neighbors? So she said, oh, I better speak up about that. And then she got intimidated when she went back to her seat. So I think we ought to treat each other a bit nicer.
All right, thank you for your comments tonight.
That is an outright lie.
We're just going to keep this civil, and we're going to keep this moving. But thank you for all of you for being here and all your comments. So Mr. Laidlaw, you're next, followed by Mr. Eggleston, followed by Jerry Kroger.
Okay, I have my timer here.
And it's on the screen too.
Okay, so tell me when it starts. Right now. My name is Jerry Laidlaw. You all know who I am. I am aware that the proposed development excavation is on siltstone and claystone bedrock. Developers are going to have to excavate a massive hole as much as 80 feet deep right next to the slope that is just a few feet away from the Beachcomber South Wing, rooms 7 through 12. This is a significant alteration and threat to the soil, the natural slope of the property, and possibly subsurface water flow. The site will be, as one lady at the last meeting pointed out, gutted like a pumpkin, and then made better by the use of temporary shoring and caissons and other methods of construction engineering. What assurances do I have as an owner if earth shift, hillside slippage, or soil cracks open up, or landslide type movement occurs during the construction or after the project completion? How can my family and the Beachcomber be made whole? These types of occurrences happen in San Clemente. The proposed project is on a coastal bluff. That warrants special attention and due diligence, especially when a project of this size and magnitude is considered. The impact of the excavation would be significant. An adequate insurance bond and performance bond should be mandatory. Protocol and common sense dictates that a competent environmental impact report and an additional geotechnical report and study be obtained from an outside source or consultant. How and why has this been sidestepped? I imagine it was deemed unnecessary, but by whom and why? And is the Planning Commission qualified to make this assumption? At the last meeting, the terms temporary shoring and permanent shoring were brought up, and how much may or may not be necessary. Doesn't it seem reasonable to make sure there is extra shoring and not just the engineering spec minimum in case of an earthquake or continued railroad vibration? This protects both parties. Obviously, the initial cost would be greater, but trying to repair hillside slip, earth shift, structural, or foundation damage that may have been avoided would cost far more. Also, it was brought to my attention at the last meeting that the original retaining wall that currently separates the Beachcomber and the Pasadena Court property wasn't going to be properly addressed. The wall is currently in a failing condition and has all but fallen over. The plan was to merely remove the dirt pressing against the wall to relieve the pressure in hopes it wouldn't fall completely over. The current owners and/or developers should build a nice, safe, substantial retaining wall with provisions for water drainage at its base on the inside.
Jerry, thank you very much, sir, for your comments tonight. Mr. Eggleston, followed by Mr. Kroger.
I think I have a presentation that's supposed to be on the screen.
Tamara? Yeah, thank you. Just a moment.
Yes, thank you. I wish to thank the Planning Commission and certainly the chairman for not voting on this last time around and to listening to the residents, because this is a significant project. The project is next to a coastal bluff, which is next to a railroad tracks. But I'm here tonight to offer a compromise for the garage gate. The garage gate should be open during the day, closed at night. This is a designated public view corridor, and looking into a garage at night with some lights is not scenic. Public view corridors, this is on the local coastal program land use plan. New development shall preserve and improve the public view corridors as designated in the public view corridor map so-and-so. New development shall implement the following visual protection measures. New development, including buildings and landscaping, shall be sited and designed to avoid or minimize impacts on public views. Every multi-unit building in the Pier Bowl has a garage gate. Even the timeshare, which has 32 units? They have a gate. So every multi-unit building has a gate. Cars will park in front of that, in front of the garage, whether or not there is a gate there or not. Let us not design a building that encourages a magnet for criminal behavior and homeless space at night. Theft and loitering has a potential to spill out into all of our neighborhoods at night without a gate. Let's not spend taxpayer dollars for sheriff the deputies' calls when a building can be designed to avoid criminal behavior at night. So the compromise, leave the garage open during the day, close it at night. Do what they do at LAX. When you register to vote at LAX in the garage in the loop, you register with your license plate. So when you pull up to the garage gate, it says, "Welcome, Bart Crandall," and the gate opens. Isn't that what they should do here? Absolutely. So I understand the applicant may be amenable, I can't pronounce it, to this gate. So thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Kroger, followed by Amanda Quintanilla, and then Mike Polachek. Welcome.
How are we doing? First off, thank you for all of the work that's been done. This has been amazing. I've really been impressed with all of the compromises and efforts made, addressing public comments as well as design requirements. This is a summary of that property area since 1996. I have been, I live next door. We've been in summaries of meetings about the property. Something that was mentioned earlier that I want to bring up, the groundwater, we retained applied scientists in 96, the geology department, and they were, at the time, they were just starting in the groundwater world. Had them back on the property in 96, they surveyed the property. We just touched on it earlier with one of the speakers about a little bit of a ditch swale taking care of the groundwater. That's not going to be adequate. The geologist in 96 said that they would, the groundwater, what they could witness, would cause slope failure, and to date we've had about 3 in the area. They were back on site in March of 2024, again saying, now, a totally different point of view. Their statement from their lead geologist was, if the property, the groundwater is properly monitored, high and low, using today's computer technology, they can mitigate the potential damage to the Beachcomber and Driftwood Bluffs. So I'm just bringing that back up as a point that makes sure that we're really talking about applying the latest sciences in that. I mean, it'll help the project, it will help the Beachcomber, it'll help Driftwood Bluffs. And again, thank you for all your work. This has been great. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your comments. Amanda, followed by Mike Polovek. And Mike is our final speaker, so if anyone else wants to speak, feel free to bring your card up.
Hello, Commissioners. Thank you. My name is Amanda Quintanilla. I'm a San Clemente resident of over 50 years, and I'm in strong opposition to the Sea Cliff Hotel and Restaurant as it is presented. I think at the last Planning Commission meeting, the restaurant came up, and it was going to be just a counter. So I think that should be amended because it's not a restaurant or a 4-star restaurant. It's just going to be a counter space where they're going to be having some food available for the people to stay there. As I said, I was at the last commission meeting where many residents attended and voiced their strong opposition to this project. And at the back, they have the public comments available there, and I hope you take into consideration those comments from the people that attended last meeting. And unfortunately, some of the residents weren't able to attend tonight. I'm concerned regarding the Capistrano Formation and the possible instability that it would create for this project, primarily to the Driftwood properties next door. I think some residents tonight brought up the concerns regarding the coastal bluff, and it should have a full environmental impact report. So I don't understand why that wasn't done. I am in opposition due to the project since the because of the historical rental and fountain. However, it's my understanding that it will be preserved on site, and I hope that the rental and fountain will be preserved and protected throughout the construction process, and that will not be damaged in any way. And at the last meeting, it was Larry Culbertson who presented photos of the historical property, specifically the garden area. And you could see the importance of maintaining that garden area with the rental and the fountain intact. So hope that will remain and be part of the preservation efforts. I am concerned regarding the noise concerns that were brought up at the last Planning Commission meeting. Also, the traffic due to, in that area on 402 Pasadena Court. And that is, I mean, that cul-de-sac, it's really difficult to maneuver that area. So I'm really concerned about that. And the residents of that area voiced their concerns regarding traffic, especially through construction. And I was wondering why there wasn't a traffic study that should have been done, especially because the roads are very narrow, and I think that should be done prior to going. I understand that this will go to the Coastal Commission, but I think that I'm in strong opposition. Thank you.
Right. Well, thank you for your comment. Mike Polkovic, and he is our final speaker unless I get another card. Welcome.
Thank you. I'll be brief. The revision to remove the parking from Pasadena Court, you put up, David, you put up a visual of a revised spa. I was curious as to the height of that spa, because part of that, maintaining that wall and getting rid of the parking, is the public can still walk up to that wall and look across the property, whatever the property is, see the beach, see the pier. It's a very heavily foot traffic for existing residents and guests in San Clemente, constantly taking that. That's why there's so much concern about the growth of the trees that were planted there. It's all about that. And in fact, somebody just spoke about public view corridors, and I have no idea how you decide that stuff, but this is one that's probably even a more prominent view corridor area for the public and, residents and guests, is that area where that low wall is being maintained. If there's a spa that's going to be built, and I don't know how big it is or high, the folks here can probably share that, but if that's just going to block that anyway, then you really haven't done much for the public so I don't know, so I'm asking. I don't know if you put it up on the screen. That was my only issue. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for your comment. I want to thank everybody for their comment and taking the time to come and speak to us tonight. We take public comments seriously. We have 11 or more new conditions of approval directly because of public comment last time. And so I want to make sure everybody does understand that this process is something that we follow for every public hearing and take it very seriously. The next step in the process is to allow the developer to come up and respond to public comments and clarify and answer questions. So I want to recognize Mr. Holloway to represent the applicant.
Yeah, I think we'll take the last comment first, and Tony's going to talk about the elevation difference between the Pasadena Court wall and the spa elevation.
Right.
So we'll do that first.
You want to do that first?
Yeah.
David, I don't know if you have the drawings available, but if you flip up to sheet A4.1, I specifically drew a section for that very purpose. And remember, there's two things. So we're trying to make everybody happy. We kept the view, so the spa is maybe 7 or 8 feet, but we added a little arbor, but the arbor is lower than the wall, because if you don't do that, now someone standing at the wall can look straight down into the spa. So we kind of split the difference, and I put that arbor where we could put some bougainvillea or plant something on the top. People can look straight away, get the sun, but they're not going to look down into the spa. So it was in the drawings, the revised drawing, so it's A4.1, and it's on the upper left-hand corner of the drawing.
We'll give We'll give Mr. Carlo just a minute to pull that, that example up on the screen. Able to do that, David, or you going to need some time?
I can either.
Did you want to speak while the staff is trying to do
Sure,
that?
I'll
Okay.
address some of the other issues. I have five comments, I think. The first, there was a comment regarding this property being a mirror image of the Casa Romanica, and we see one of the major advantages of this project is we all know that there's been a slide over next to the Casa Romanica, and it's damaged, the Casa Romanica grounds and the adjacent condominiums. And they're in the process of repairing that slope. In my understanding, it's at a cost of about $8 million, and it's taxpayer money. And that's the situation you get when you address these chronic San Clemente geologic problems reactively rather than proactively. And what we would like to do, and what the project will do, is in the process of building the garage, the foundations for the buildings, we stabilize the slope, and so we proactively address the geologic problems and stabilize not only this site, these cultural resources, but the adjacent properties to some degree. Another example, and I won't digress too far, but reactive addressing geologic problems was the La Ventana slide, which occurred back in the 90s, and I was in charge then, and we had to saw off 6 buildings were sawed off, and they fell down the slope, and it was a long messy process to get the La Ventana slide fixed over time. We went over to Colony Cove, which is just on the other side of that T intersection of Camino Cap, and we proactively stabilized those slopes, so none of those condominiums on the top ever went down the slope. So I'm a big proponent of proactively addressing geologic issues, and this is the golden opportunity to do that. So that's my comment, number one. And number two, and number one and number two, but number three, we are rehabilitating the home. We are rehabilitating the stairs, the runnel, the fountain, and the garden terrace. You can only do that if you have an economically viable projects. And we haven't had an economically viable project presented to the city and then approved by the Coastal Commission in 30 years. So we need an economically viable project in order to do the rehabilitation for these cultural resources that I just named, that people are rightfully concerned about. So that's my comment number three. We know the Pasadena courts constricted in terms of traffic circulation, emergency access. We understand that, and I think our curb improvements will help that. But we can't fix the whole street. That's a city issue that needs to be addressed through city budgetary discussions and other discussions far beyond the scope of this project. We will marginally help that, though, as Zach talked about and discussed, by lowering that curb height and moving it over somewhat so that we improve the situation rather than make it worse. And then the final point we'd like to make is that the gate, we're okay with putting a gate. We've been kind of back and forth on that because there's different opinions, within the staff and within the public. But we're okay with the gate, and we think that it should be open just for until the technology really catches up, like Wayne's technology, and has been proven. We'd like to just keep it open in the daytime, close it at night. We think that's a benefit to all concerned.
Yeah, so I just wanted to follow up. If you look at the section in the upper left-hand corner, that's looking south, and so you can see like there's that scale figure I put. So again, it's previously with the parking, that was we were nobody was really going to walk up to the parking lot and have the view. But since everybody wants the view, everybody wants a historical wall, we don't think it's unreasonable to provide some kind of privacy for the property and the people using the property. So that's why if you see the configuration of the arbor, I can do this kind of cantilevered with the bracket that extends over, cuts the sight line off to the spa, but maintains the sight line to the ocean.
How tall is that arbor?
It's going to be about, I can't see the dimension on, I don't know if this, it's dimensioned on there, but it's lower than the wall. So if you see the wall there, and again, I can lower that thing a few inches here or there. It's high enough that it's over your head when you're down in the spa, but it's low enough that if you were in a distance, you wouldn't even know there was an arbor. All you'll see is the historic wall there.
Okay, I think if you zoom in just a little bit more, Tamara, I think we can read at 5 feet, it looks like.
Yeah. Oh, and you know what? Right, I made it 5 foot because it's serving as a pool fence. I have to have a enclosure around that.
10 foot. It's 5 foot above the top of the wall.
Correct, but it's lower than the wall. It's lower than your wall. It's a 5 foot fence, but there's only a 2 foot platform. So remember, the spa goes down you're sitting down into the spa. So it has like a 2 foot pony wall, then a 5 foot. So that's over your head. So you don't want the thing any lower than 7 feet or so.
All right. Is that all, does that conclude your presentation?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Comment on the hedge?
Yeah,
As long as I'm here.
well, I'm just going to turn, at this point, I'm just going to start recognizing my colleagues for questions, either the applicant or staff, before we have discussion. So does anyone have some points they want to lead off with? We'll go with Vice Chair Camp, and then we'll just
Yeah, I'd
go
like
on
to
down.
get back to that issue of the landscape height limit and the hedge. And there's some reluctance, I guess, to abide by the suggested height limit. Can you comment on that, Jim?
Yeah, I guess just from a planning, standpoint, there's no policy basis for that. So, I don't really like making up stuff like that, because there's no planning, there's no ordinance or policy basis for it. In fact, contrary to, the neighbors, there's the view from the Pasadena Court wall is not a established, view corridor. We respect what they've said, and it's important to them. But at some point, we have to kind of draw the line and say, let's look at the we've listed time and time again what the policies are, and there's plenty of them, and we comply with all of them, and there is no policy basis for that view plane.
Why don't we just stay on that topic and ask staff to address that comment, so we're close the loop on that.
I'll go ahead and take that topic. So I think what I'd refer the commissioners to is attachment 6. And that's sheet A1 of attachment 6 that shows the modifications in the area that we're talking about. There's a standard condition related to a final detailed landscape and irrigation plan being required. So we will get revised landscape plans related to that. The prior submittal and site plan did include some plants that appeared to be, intended as a hedge, but also the site plan has changed since that time. I think staff's willingness to remove that condition is because we do have existing zoning standards that address this issue. The hedges within our code are limited to 42 inches within the setback, and this sheet does show where the setback occurs. The landscape area has been narrowed in this area, so there's less room for landscaping, but what we would be looking for is really compliance with the existing landscape provisions of the code within that narrow strip that sits beyond the wall that's being discussed. That would not apply, and another component of why we would be amenable to removal of that condition is that this property historically has had a number of trees, and and I don't think that the intent would be to disallow trees to exist on this property. The focus would be, again, related to not having a hedge condition, but allowing for diversity and variety of landscaping, which we can review through the final landscape plans in conjunction with our reviewer, Summers, Murphy and Partners.
I guess I'm not connecting. Why was it suggested then on the staff recommendation?
Yeah, so the suggestion came out of one, again, the ongoing effort to try to listen to concerns from neighbors and the community and identify ways to handle those. And then two, from the prior version of the landscape, seeing that there was a tightly indicated on the planting plan, tight row of plants that could serve as a hedge. And so recognizing that within the landscape plan was the genesis of putting this in. However, since that version, the site plan has changed. So even that area where that hedge was shown is impacted because the area of the spa here is enlarged. Now that there's no need for the parking spaces there, the site plan has shifted, so the spa area is larger and the landscape is moved back. So there already has to be revisions to that landscape plan. I think we were trying to address some of the things in that former landscape plan. We can accomplish that through the final detailed review.
Okay. Karen, are you ready to go? Okay, so I'll recognize Commissioner Prescott Loeffler.
So I had a couple of things, and I'm not going to hog them all, but I'm just going to throw them out there. For staff, the emergency vehicles, possibly we'll talk about painting the side red there. What was also brought up tonight was water pressure, groundwater to be monitored, current code violations, and we talked about bonds. And then right now I kind of want to address the pony wall. Will it be, Jim, will it be shored up? What will happen to that pony wall? Is it just going to remain the same?
You mean the historical wall?
The historical wall.
That will be retained. It's in place, no change whatsoever.
So the condition that it's in now will be the condition that it goes forward? I just want clarification on that. Or will it be, there was a suggestion tonight that it was not in good structure.
As far as I know, it's not a structural wall, and it's old, but our intent is just to keep it. If there needs to be some rehabilitation or repair, we're certainly willing to do that. But it's not a structural wall. There's no need to remove it and rebuild it. The stairs, there's safety issues with the stairs, which are going to require major rehabilitation, but you'll still see the stairs. But the wall, unless we discover something during construction, there's no intent to change it whatsoever.
And thank you for agreeing to keep the parking garage closed at night. I think that is the benefit to the area. Thank you. I'll move on. Let everybody else have an opportunity.
All right. Scott, are you ready to go?
Sure.
Okay. I'll recognize Commissioner McCann.
Thank you. It was brought up about 26 special events, but I think our conditions say that they can apply for 11 temporary use events in the year. Is that accurate?
12, I think.
It's 12.
12, okay.
Correct.
It was just brought up about delivery truck size. Do we feel that we need to, condition on that, or that it's fine to leave that unaddressed?
I'll take that. I think one of the reasons that this is differentiated from a similar project that you've looked at, the hotel project on Del Mar, is this is not a full-service kitchen.
Okay.
So it's a catering kitchen, so the quantity and types of deliveries would be less. I think the applicant can potentially discuss or respond as to like what types of deliveries they may have, but the frequency and size of vehicles we were anticipating to be of a lesser nature than the other project.
Okay, thank you. That's fine. Yeah, it's, someone brought up something about water pressure. I don't see how this project is going to negatively impact the water pressure. The water pressure is based on, you know, the site elevation relative to the city's water system. Groundwater monitoring was brought up. I don't know if this is a Zach issue. I don't know, and quite frankly, I don't know what good groundwater monitoring would do if there's no ability to, you know, pump it or de-water or something, just seeing it go up and down. Do you have any thoughts on that or comment?
Yeah, I heard that comment too. Yeah, like you said, groundwater monitoring is more when you're just looking to see what it's doing over time. So unless you're looking to implement a dewatering program on a neighborhood-wide basis, I'm not sure what that would do for the project. Ultimately, all the retaining walls that are new and being built on this project will include back drains so that hydrostatic pressure doesn't build up behind these walls. And so unless they're built for hydrostatic pressure, which most people don't do, we have a drain behind every wall that catches that groundwater. And so there shouldn't be a natural buildup because of it, because of that drain system is incorporated into the wall design.
Okay, thank you very much. It was brought up multiple times by multiple people, you know, desiring to have an environmental impact report on this project. I see it as being categorically exempt clearly, but I wanted staff or probably the city attorney to just discuss that and your confidence in the environmental determination that the staff has made, suggesting for us to support. Or maybe comment on why, you know, you feel like it's categorically exempt.
Yeah, we do agree with staff's determination, and I do point you to the very extensive analysis done in the resolution, and I think that is, you know, we do review all of this information, and we do agree with it.
Okay. And there's no, you know, it's clear cut to you that it's categorically exempt.
Yes.
Thank you.
Could I I'm sorry because I've been doing this a long time, can I just make a quick comment about the environmental process?
I'll defer to the chair on that.
Okay.
Jim, we're just gonna,
Come back?
if he wants to direct it to you, otherwise.
Okay.
It's gonna.
Fair enough.
Have our questions, yeah.
Fair enough. Okay.
I have no further comments at this time.
Thank you. Commissioner Crandall?
Well, being last in line, most of the items I had have been discussed already, but Jonathan, can you explain the special event permits, and that this is not unique to this project or anything else, that most all projects have 12 a year that they have to apply for, and they can be approved or not approved?
Correct. So there is a process for review that could be administrative or could be discretionary depending on the type of event and length of event that any property can apply for. So the condition in front of you is not to allow 12, it's really to restrict the quantity. So it reduces by half the amount that properties can normally apply for. Staff is supportive of that in this case because of the proximity of residential uses nearby, and this would still allow for a monthly event, or if the applicant chose to do requests different than that. But if there was a request that came in that staff felt would have impacts, we can refer that through a discretionary process and or recommend denial if it was a request for something that we thought would be inappropriate for that location and area. So the condition that is in front of you would reduce the amount of special activities that would not be able to occur on site. And in the future, if there is a history of no code compliance issues, et cetera, the applicant could always come back and request an amendment with that history of no code issues for further review. But that's what that condition does.
Thank you. And then, Jim, have you guys thought about hours of operation for the spa?
For the spa?
Yeah, limiting the hours at some point in the evening or whatever, so,
I think we,
'cause they
no,
get,
I think that's
they
fine.
sometimes get
There's-
noise generated.
That's a kind of fairly common kind of condition and understanding. Usually they close them off at 10 o'clock, I would think. I understand that. That's,
Okay, and then I will hold everything else for discussion.
Okay, just real quick, you, Commissioner Crandall touched on, I was going to ask the same thing about the spa hours. Staff, I do appreciate the adding of the special events condition. I want to just make sure that, the question I want to get at is amplified sound on the property in general. I understand special event permits now required, but will there be amplified sound allowed on this property? I mean, or is it somewhere that I'm not seeing amplified sound is not allowed
Correct. I think,
without the permit?
yes,
In other
this-
words, more specifically speaking to amplified sound.
the CUP does not include amplified sound.
Okay, so they can't do it.
Correct.
Okay.
Chair, I should clarify, because I think that there's a difference here, that the CUP does not cover amplified sound, and we have a number of uses throughout the city that operate on a permanent basis for an allowance with amplified sound under the CUP. Temporary use permits can request amplified sound. That would be a separate review.
Yes.
So the condition in place isn't prohibiting the request of amplified sound as currently written.
Yeah, I think I want to address that when we get into discussion, that my expectation is no amplified sound on this property. And then if they want to have a special event that utilizes amplified sound, they can go through the permit process for that. So that's where I'm coming from. Okay. Traffic. Does construction traffic, is that allowed on Cazador or Pasadena Court? Hear from staff first. Thanks.
Yes, it is a public street, just like any remodel or any construction project for any of those houses. They'll be allowed to park wherever there's available spot. During certain phases, most contractors come in and get a traffic control plan for like a week when they're all of a sudden doing major loading or major demo.
Okay.
We'll allow them to do certain areas of closure of certain parking stalls for lumber drops or something like that, just so they're able to do it. Once this property gets its basement and garage done, most of that'll happen on site. But for the first few demo and first few phases, there'll be some times where construction traffic and phasing will utilize public street parking stalls through a separate permit that they obtain through Public Works. But normal workers that come in every day are just like anybody else. We do not regulate or control where they park on a
Okay.
staff level.
Okay, Jim, did you want to add to that?
yeah, and thank you, Zach, that's the perfect city answer. As a practical matter, there may be some rehab on the historic home where you'd have craftsmen coming in, but all the heavy stuff's gonna come in, just logistically, they're just gonna come in off Victoria. So the heavy construction, the cement trucks, et cetera, they're gonna have to come in, especially now that we're retaining the Pasadena Court wall. The major construction's gonna come in off of, just logically and practically off of Victoria. Not to say that there won't be some craftsmen that might be doing some work, or landscapers that might be doing some work up above, but, you know, just from a practical standpoint, we want you to understand beyond what Zach said.
So when they do the sidewalk on Cazador, stuff like that, cement trucks will be up there.
That's-
Obviously,
yeah,
to pour that curb and gutter,
yeah.
that tile work up there.
Landscaping, yeah.
So there will be phases that do use the upper streets. They'll have to,
Okay.
just like any other project on those streets.
Okay. Deliveries, Jim, can you speak to deliveries?
Yeah,
How'll that work?
We actually worked with OCFA and the waste. There's a pull-off area right in front of the 3 historic garages there, and that's where the kind of the heavier delivery will occur. Some of the smaller delivery vans and that sort of thing, which I think we're going to have it's smaller scale, much smaller scale. They'll just come right into the garage.
Okay, so no deliveries on Cazador and Pasadena Court, they're all going to be on Avenida Victoria, all of them?
It's-
That's,
Never and none is
that's where I'm, can you live with that condition?
yeah.
Okay, thanks. Zach, can you come back? I want to talk about the slope, the excavation and concerns that we heard from Mr. Laidlaw. He had mentioned assurance bond. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I briefly spoke about it at the previous hearing. All grading permits require a performance and labor material bond. It's in the valuation of the work that's being done on that grading permit. So the sidewalk, the excavation, the earthwork, the shoring, the retaining walls. So whatever that cost of that construction is that we determine it is, they'll have to post a bond for basically 200% of that, 100% performance, 100% labor material. The shoring on this site, the walls and everything, this is going to be a bond well over $500,000. Could be up in the $1 million range potentially. The property owner is responsible to post that, not their contractor. So the property owner goes to a bonding company or puts up cash. Most of them do a bonding company. And we do it at the valuation of the engineering work. And shoring is part of that, and the earthwork itself.
How do you handle concerns from neighbors that can impact them? How do you typically deal with that?
I mean, ultimately, the means and methods of construction are somewhat out of our control, and same with the building code, doesn't allow the building department to dictate means and methods. It's just, you shall build to meet the code of what you're building. Temporary measures like shoring, I think I mentioned at the previous hearing, not a lot of cities even permit it. We do here through our engineering department. This applicant has supplied already preliminary shoring plans done by, I believe, Dave Perkis. I don't know one issue that's come up with a Dave Perkis shoring project. He's one, you try not to give, I'm trying not to give recommendations or anything to anybody, but we see a lot of work from David Perkis. I've never heard an issue from his work. He's well known to our soils, well known geotechnically on a lot of our slide areas. Work is done. If there are issues between 2 property owners, that's a lot of times a civil issue between 2 property owners. But if they come to us and it has an open bond, we have a right to say, if they're not doing something correctly, we can call that bond to have things addressed.
Okay.
A lot of times that bond isn't to finish a job, it's to address mostly the safety issues. You dig a big hole, we're not going to finish the project, we're usually going to fill that hole and put it back to a safe condition. That being said, I don't know in my time, 18 plus years, I don't know of a project of this size ever having its bond called.
Okay.
Usually the threat of calling it is enough to have a contractor immediately address an issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jim, you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, and Zach answered, the kind of the city answer. This project uniquely had to provide an economic analysis to prove feasibility. None of your other projects have been required to do that. This project was required to do that by the CRC1 zone, and we did it. And there should be some comfort in that. I'm not recommending that you require feasibility studies for all the projects in San Clemente, but we did it, and we believe our project is feasible, and I'll just leave it at that.
Sure. Let's move to the historic wall. sorry, no, I don't want to go historic, the retaining wall between your property and the Beachcomber. Can either one of you speak to the condition of that retaining wall, and is this an opportunity to improve it? Make it stronger, maybe update it?
Yes, so currently the wall is a retaining wall. So there's, from the back of the Beachcomber project, there's a city lot A, I think it's like 10 or 15 feet. Then, so our property does not touch the Beachcomber. So there's about a 10 to 15 foot easement or lot there. Right now, so if you imagine it goes level, then our property goes up, that's a retaining wall. The final construction, there's a new wall, but it's not retaining anymore. There's air because there's cars underneath it. So we are actually removing any dirt, anything that's being retained is being removed. So there's no water, no earth. It's just literally a wall. And the way the property is, as you can see, it's an above ground wall simply because that lot that separates us from the Beachcomber, that's where basically the bottom of our garage is plus or minus a foot or so. It's like literally a wall on grade straight up, and then there's a podium. So there's no earth to be retained. So I would be, that should be comforting.
Okay, Tony, since you're here, I'm under the impression that the city talked to you about, with a request to meet with Mr. Laidlaw, with your soil engineer, your shoring engineers, to show him and any consultants they've retained the details of those plans.
Right. Okay, yeah.
Was that with you, Jim? Yeah. And I don't think that offer was taken up on. I'm wondering if you would still be open to doing that as a neighborly thing, to have your consultants talk to their consultants, and also include the driftwood, if they want to be included in that, so that everybody can see the plans, talk about them in technical detail, have engineers talk to engineers, and get people comfortable with what it is that your project's proposing. Is that something you're still willing to do?
I don't think we want to do it, but we're happy to do that. We're willing to do that. We have no problem doing that. I do want to meet with a qualified professional, though, just lay people talking.
Understood.
Isn't
That would be
gonna
the,
do-
yes, understood.
Okay.
My impression is that they might have hired those consultants, and
That'd be fine. then.
for me, if somebody's hearing it from their consultant that this project is meeting standards, et cetera, that might help. And Zach, I don't know if that does happen, maybe you or somebody from the city could attend and just take notes, so that if there is new ideas or concerns expressed and, oh yeah, we could do this, that's captured.
We can attend that meeting.
Okay.
There is one, yes.
Okay, so I'm going to bring that up in discussion. We offer that again. Okay, I don't have any other questions. Does anybody else have any questions that they want to ask? Okay, Commissioner Prescott Leffler.
They're still on my list. Maybe for Jonathan, can you address the current code violations that have been brought up as far as the landscaping?
Sure. So the staff received an email within the last week identifying a concern about the height of landscaping. Our code compliance officer visited the site yesterday and took a photo. From the photo, it seems like it might be over 42 inches. I would say not significantly above 42 inches. And so the standard process would be to issue a notice and for the property owner to have an opportunity to correct. And then if corrections are not made, then citations are issued. That's the standard process throughout the city, especially this time, midsummer. We have lots of hedges that are over height at this point. So that would be the process. So I would say that there's not a open code case with a reticence to correct. There is a notice that will be going out related to maintaining the 42-inch height.
Okay. And then I think this is for Zach. We talked about the red curb. I brought it up. Is that something that is feasible for emergency vehicles?
So I'd probably need some clarification on where you're referring to. If it's the Pasadena Court, that area is already marked for no parking. So we tend to not mark areas longer than a certain distance red curb because it's kind of annoying looking at. So we often just sign it. But if there's an ongoing parking issue out there, or if you'd like to see it red curbed, we can technically red curb it at any time. So that area is already codified as no parking.
And was there a release from fire as far as their vehicles, emergency vehicles?
Fire is part of the development management team that reviews the project and establishes any conditions. So they are aware of the road width getting to the site. Servicing the site for this particular project will be done off Victoria. The rest of the neighborhood always has gone through Elena Lane, Cazador, and Pasadena Court. They're obviously open and happy if we can widen it at any point. There's a narrow point where the drive aisle is about 12 feet for 2 parking stalls. I think we can get that to 16 feet, which is narrow, just as narrow as kind of the rest of the street as Cazador. One of the neighbors mentioned, or the commenter from representing a neighbor, was the rest of Cazador. Trying to get that, or a lot of Southwest San Clemente compliant to today's standards, would probably be removing parking on at least one side of the street, or one way in almost every street on that side of the freeway.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Before we go into discussion, Jonathan, is there anything else that you want to bring to our attention?
Thank you, Chair, but not at this time.
Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I'm going to open it up to now to commission discussion about the application. Does anybody want to lead us off? Would you like me to lead us off? How do you guys want to go? I'm happy to take the lead on this.
Whatever you want.
Okay.
If you want.
Yeah. I'm prepared to support the project tonight, and I'd like to offer as part of that some new conditions, and I'll just briefly mention them, and I think they're pretty obvious. One is, all of them, what I mentioned, restricting deliveries to Avenida Victoria only. I'd like to make a condition about the garage door, that there be a garage door required, and that it shall remain open. I'm open to staff suggestions, but say sunrise to sunset, something like that. And then closed after sunset, so at night. I'd like to see a new condition for that. And I would like to clean up the noise with a condition that specifically says no amplified sound on the property. That's the kind of the baseline. And then if they want to, they've got the special event one that they can pursue that would include the amplified sound. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. I'm supportive of the 2 staff conditions that they want to put in. And so that would be the conditions. And then the only other thing, I don't know, Jonathan, if you think we need to make this a condition, but I would like to just make it more of a formal request that the city offer a meeting with the Beachcomber property owners and the Driftwood Condominium Association board and the applicant's soils engineering, the opportunity, if they have retained professionals in that area, soils and engineers, that they have an engineer meeting opportunity. They can decline it, they cannot have it, but we offer it. And the spirit of that is neighborly. The spirit of that is more information is better than none. And sometimes we have concerns and fears, and the best way to face them is to put everything on the table and let the experts share plans, discuss it, have an open conversation. And if anything comes out of that that all parties are amenable to, great. The city can be present to note that. So however that needs to be structured, I would like to see that. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. I mean, does anybody else want to chime in?
Question on, you said that supportive of the 2 staff conditions. Was one of those 2 staff conditions deleting 4.24 about the vegetation height limit?
Well, let's discuss that, because I think that staff recommendation, David, was to include the height restriction on the hedge.
Yeah, so that one is 4.24, is already included in the conditions.
So you're recommending that, but then the applicant is requesting that we strike it. And your city staff is supportive of striking it.
Correct.
So where do you stand?
So that would be 4.5?
24, 4.24.
Okay, let me get to that.
This hedge is within within the setback. It can only be 42 inches high. We don't need to have
A condition?
a condition, I don't believe. Is that correct, Jonathan? I mean,
Correct,
this-
that's staff's
We're
position.
just restating the code again.
Yeah, we're just asking them to abide by the code.
Yeah.
Then I'm mistaken, because I thought that the 4.24 covered like the whole property. Anything in the setback.
No,
yeah,
no,
that's
no,
covered,
it's just the height plane limit for landscaping proposed on the southeast portion of property. So I think
Okay,
it's,
okay.
no, yeah.
Okay.
Benign.
Can I comment?
Yeah,
on-
let's have discussion. I'm just suggesting maybe a starting point for everybody. So,
So
Vice
you're-
Chair Camp.
Yeah, the suggestion for a condition to offer or require another consultant to get involved in the design, and to what end? I mean, we can't really I don't think we can place a condition, because what happens, right? I mean, what
No,
if
no, I
there's,
was,
what if there's a disagreement?
I left that out of my conditions. I'm leading up to staff. The notion is an invitation for a meeting between the owners of the Beachcomber and the HOA of the Driftwood. If they have concerns about slope stability, if they have concerns about the mechanisms upon which excavation is going to happen and the potential impact to their adjacent property, if they have gone to the extent of retaining their own slope engineering, that we offer an invitation to allow a meeting between their slope engineers and the applicant's slope engineers.
I don't see the point. We're not talking about an exact science here. You could easily have two consultants disagree on means and methods of construction. And we're not in a position, I don't think, to dictate further investigation. That's the city's job. So I'm just wondering why we would put a condition like that in there when I just don't see the ultimate benefit, to what end.
Yeah, I wasn't suggesting that it was a condition.
Well, okay. Well, I mean, they've already offered,
Yeah.
I think, to,
It's just a meeting, share information.
okay.
More of a suggestion.
Yeah, it's more of a suggestion, if they've gone to that extent to retain engineers. I'm just hearing that there's a lot of apprehension, and sometimes I think apprehension is best met with experts sharing notes and talking about it at a professional level. So if they can do it, great. If they don't want to do it, that's fine too.
So that just goes on record.
Yes, we don't need to make it a condition.
Very good.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Sorry, before I get into my discussion items. There was a lot of talk at the last meeting about inclinometers and stuff, and there's a condition in there now about inclinometers. I guess I'd probably look to Zach to educate me at a minimum on what does that mean exactly? What's their reliability and feasibility? And then I guess maybe even ask the applicant how they feel about that condition.
So what I'm picturing with this condition is placement of 2 or 3 inclinometers around the site perimeter. Have to be within the site or within the public right-of-way, or that public 8-foot alley that's in between the two subject properties. The inclinometers are there, if they're monitored daily or every few days, they can tell you if there are certain movements at a certain slide plane, for example. So if they do a 60-foot deep inclinometer, somebody can measure that and tell you there's something happening at 20 feet. If that happens, I picture the developer then reacting to that and either addressing their work or coming up with a plan to kind of hopefully stop that movement. The inclinometers aren't going to stop the movement, they're just going to tell you something's moving. And so at that point, the city could issue a stop work and tell a developer, hey, you have now a safety issue for the neighborhood. We need you to either address it or we have a bigger issue on hands.
Okay, so are they common practice in this type of construction, and are they reliable, as far as you know?
I don't know of the city ever requiring them to be put in. Developers may do them on their own. Vibration monitoring, for sure. Most developers, to protect their own liability, like to put in vibration monitors just so a neighbor doesn't accuse them of something after the fact. And so a lot of times vibration monitoring is done by a developer on their own desires. But putting in inclinometers is kind of a unique, I don't think it hurts anything, but it only measures what's happening.
Okay, thank you. And
You're talking about 4.23.
Let me ask one more
Sure.
question. Zach, on inclinometers and these things, we're not soils engineers. And we shouldn't get into putting a burden on the soils engineers. But as a city engineer, is that something you could request and they would have to abide by? If you felt it was necessary?
I do believe our grading code says the city engineer can ask for any studies. I'm not sure if placing inclinometers is a study, though. That's a good question.
Well, think about that one,
Yeah,
because, I mean,
Oh, is that right?
the arguments for the meetings and all, I understand that the public can go to the builder and say, we'd like to have our engineer meet yours. That's all it takes. We don't have to get involved in that, because we aren't going to monitor it, and we probably shouldn't even attend it. City should attend it, but I don't think lay people like ourselves should be getting involved in that. Soils engineer has to be licensed by the state, got to be bonded. He's putting his career on the line with his design. Same with the foundation engineer, same with the architect. They are going to be more cautious than an environmental impact review or whatever, because their careers and businesses are on the line. And that's pretty encouraging, especially when an applicant gets the best ones they can get. So I'm nervous about getting too involved with the specifics of the engineering. That's not what we do. We're looking at land use,
Yeah, we talked
not,
about this. I mean,
not engineering.
I don't think we should have any involvement in the soil, in the engineering, in the construction means and methods. I mean, that's outside of our,
I don't think we are. Tell me where we're doing that.
well, for one thing, there's a condition, this 4.23, which specifically requires, this says, shoring plans, okay. Why do we have that? I mean, you need, shoring plans are required by the building and safety, right? Monitoring of slope movement, vibration, monitoring, to include but not limited to inclinometers. Well, why is that a condition of our approval here? I'm not really asking. We're having a discussion. I just don't know. I don't know that we even want to have that as a condition, since that's part of the process through Public Works, through, the processing of approvals for the construction documents. I mean, we're looking at this project from a planning standpoint primarily, right? Even with, we have a CUP that we have to approve, which we dig a little deeper, right? But there's been a lot of discussion, it seems like most of it tonight, which is a repeat from our last meeting, with concerns, and I have concerns too if I lived near there. But there's nothing that we can do aside from stopping the project, which I'm not suggesting we do that. But I just think we need to sort of bypass this discussion about anything having to do with construction and means and methods. Maybe even removing that condition, 4.23. Is that normal to have that? I guess I can't ask that question. That kind of a condition? Or is that just because of the concerns that have
I
been?
think actually at the previous hearing, it was somewhat offered, to be perfectly honest. Jim can correct me if I'm wrong. When the vibration monitoring topic came up from the public, I believe the applicant maybe even offered it. And then when the inclinometers came up, it was maybe agreed upon. The inclinometers is a little different. Vibration monitoring, my consultants are going to ask, are you planning on doing this? Please add this in as a condition or tell us why it's not needed. And most people end up putting it in anyway. And so I think that was just something that was brought up, and I think you guys, especially the vibration monitoring. The inclinometers is just a little bit unique.
It was clear at the last hearing that frankly, there's a lot of conditions in here that are not necessary from a technical standpoint. It was just a matter of the public not understanding the processes that you and Bart are talking about. Just as you said, just as Bart said. But we're just trying to let the public know that these things are covered they're already in the code. And another example, since I button in here, people keep asking for an EIR and thinking that there's been no environmental process. There's been a huge environmental process. It's just the general public isn't aware and doesn't know what's already in the codes and how the terminology works. For instance, in the environmental process, there's a huge checklist we went through. There were studies that were required. Just for instance, we had a historic resources report that was required for the environmental analysis, and then we had a peer review of that study, and all that feeds into the findings that allow you to make an exemption. In the same way with shoring and that sort of thing. We know it's in the code, and it's in the code. The public didn't know that, though.
So with that being said, how do you feel about condition 4.23 requiring you to install inclinometers?
We don't care. And that's a great example too, because we typically, again, I'm in favor of proactive, addressing geologic problems proactively rather than reactively. Where we've used, we have used inclinometers, and there's inclinometers at the driftwood. You put them in to find out if something's going to happen, and you don't really have a plan in place, and it gives you kind of an early warning. That's really not what's going to happen here. We're going to be actively stabilizing the site, so it's kind of a belts and suspenders, and it's not really needed, I don't think. But the public seemed to want it, and it's no big deal, frankly. It's just no big deal, and the public doesn't understand all the details that some of you know about. So we're just trying to smooth the waters a little bit.
Thank you.
Okay.
Real quick, can I ask another question? Because, another significant change on what's proposed tonight versus the prior one was now the reconstruction of the fountain rather than the salvaging or saving of the fountain. And your historical consultant wrote an analysis of that. I just wanted, I guess,
She's here.
she here? Can she speak to that real briefly?
You bet.
Why?
Just to get on the record that,
But
did
it's been
last time.
provided.
Yeah.
It's been provided.
Yeah, we agreed.
Why do we have to? hear
Okay.
her
okay,
speak it?
not needed, thank you.
I mean, she provided what we requested.
Yeah.
My general
good.
opinion is that they did I agree with most of your things, but they pretty much did everything that was requested of them. And a lot of it is based on public comment. It's not, technical. It's not, kind of things that we're looking at. So they came back, they're going to rebuild it. It works as far as the requirements of the Secretary of Interior.
And I know that, it's just, it was a big deal last time, so I just wanted to kind of
Yep.
let the public close the loop on that, but it's fine.
I don't mean to be rude, Scott.
Someone's in a mood tonight. Can I jump in with my?
Yeah, your comments, please.
Yeah, I think this is a great project. I'm supportive of the project. I think with the reconfiguration of the parking and removing the 5 spots from above and putting them down below, I think it's much, much better. And that's completely, being sensitive to the comments of the neighbors. But I think that's much better. I agree that regarding CEQA, this project should be categorically exempt per classes 1, 31, and 32. I agree wholeheartedly. In my opinion, you do need a viable project to be able to fund the rehabilitation of these things and these historic features. So I agree that with all of the foundation and soils and geotechnical work that's going to go into building this project, it is going to better stabilize the area for everyone. I believe that strongly. So I'm supportive of the project, and I'm supportive of the conditions that you've proposed to
Thank you.
add or modify.
All right, Commissioner Crandall, your comments, please.
I can make the findings for this project. I'm a little concerned about this door we're talking about on the garage. Some of those parking spaces are for use by restaurant tenants. I mean, that's what they're for. And if this thing, you got to check in to get in or whatever, and this door's going up and down, I see it being a real difficulty because the restaurant will be open, let's say till, I call it a restaurant, it's there to be a pedestrian-oriented amenity. But going in and out, it's going to be open most of the time now. I like the security after, say, 10 o'clock. I mean, that, and when the restaurant closes. But prior to that, I don't think we can dictate an hour, but we could say it closes 30 minutes after the restaurant closes or something like that. I don't know. But I think we should leave that to staff to work out rather than try, I mean, because I don't know if, we don't know the operation of the uses. And there will be guests there also, visiting tenants. So.
Can you clarify your concern with the gate?
Well, we talked about, at sunset, closing a door, so it protects the view, so you don't see lights. I don't see that that's practical, not worded like that. Security, absolutely. I definitely think it should be closed up at night.
So like a grill?
Well, I wouldn't mind,
You're
it.
concerned-
I'd like seeing it a door, but it'd have to be a roll-up, but it's going to be noisier than heck if it's a sectional roll-up. So I don't think that's really resolved yet, and I think that's something maybe staff needs to work on before we try to tie it down completely and resolve that.
I'm just trying to understand your concern about that. Is it because if it breaks?
No. My concern is it's public parking. So how can you close it off?
I think it's hotel parking.
And restaurant. So those 4 stalls have to be
So you're saying
accessible.
keep it-
You got to be able to get to them.
Go ahead.
Jim, can you respond to that, please?
Thank you. I'm dying to. I really, thank you, Bart. I really think if you could give us some latitude and have the city planner kind of help, work with, there's other issues. It seems real simple, but the hours of operation, I was a little taken aback when the staff report said there's going to be 4 spaces for the restaurant. That wasn't our intent. And I don't know exactly how that should work. We know we have 11 11 spaces for the overnight guests. We have staff parking. And I'd just like some latitude. Another issue, there's a grade there, and it's not just one flat gate that comes down. We have to work out it's a slanting door. So we just need some design and operational latitude. I feel comfortable working with the staff on that. I really like the idea of security at night. But I would like some latitude to work with the staff, and they can report back to you guys what we figured out as we go.
That is an issue.
Jonathan, can you be working on a draft condition that when get done with the discussion, maybe you could read it back to us, something that you would propose on this?
I can, and if I could just put one point out there for additional discussion, the public comment seemingly related to requiring some form of a gate as a means of closing off light and/or sound in reference to other gates in the area. I did take a look at gates in the area. None of them are solid. They're all chain, so any of those garages in the existing area, the condos, hotels, et cetera, that are nearby are either podium or have more of a chain type of a garage enclosure. So none of those would close off light. So I'd appreciate if the commission touch on that and give clear direction if we are going to be working with the applicant on a final design.
You know, one thing we could do is require a sort of a sharp cutoff for those lights, because they do need security lights inside that garage so that they are reflected back into the garage as opposed to out into the street, which I think is the main concern. And that's easy enough, I think, to put in as a condition.
A shielded light.
Shielded, yeah. Thanks, that's what.
Sorry.
What do you guys think about that? Yeah.
Instead of the door?
Yeah, because I wasn't thinking about that,
The sound
public
of,
parking, there's
Yeah.
4 spaces that are gonna get used, no question.
in the area does have gates.
It's from a security standpoint, a grill is what you should use, and that can be built on a slope. I mean, you can make that work on the slope. It can be a rolling gate, there's stuff that can be done. So if the concern is the security and the lighting not being obtrusive or whatever, then I think we can do shielded. I mean, it can be basically be cut off at the,
Yeah, I think we'd have a photometric study as well, so perhaps we could craft a condition that is not open-ended, but gives staff some options and some latitude to work with the applicant on mitigating security as well as light spillage concerns, using a combination of a gate and shielded lighting and directed lighting and things of that nature, and let the staff work through this with the developer, but ensure that it is addressed. Is that what you're kind of getting at?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I add that?
So Jonathan, if you could be working some language up on that we could review, that would be great.
I think the goal was for security, so if we could kind of
It's
focus.
security and lighting, because once it gets dark, and you're driving down, or you're walking down, depending on how bright that light is,
A shielded light.
it can take away not just the view, but it also can be potentially a danger to drivers driving down and having light in their eye and not able to see the road, and pedestrians and other things like that. So I think it's a concern we needed to address. I'm hearing from my colleagues, let's add some flexibility into this, and let's have it be actionable by the staff versus designed by us tonight. So if that's the sense, Jonathan, if you could work on that. Commissioner Crandall, did we get all of your discussion items? Because I know we took a tangent, but I want to bring it back to you to make sure you're done.
That's all right.
Okay.
Whatever he's like. I think that pretty much covers it.
Covers it? Great. Okay, Commissioner Proscott Loeffler, I'm just trying to move us along here.
I can make the findings to support the project, and I can support the conditions with new language for the garage
Okay.
design and operation.
I do have one last question.
Sure.
Jonathan, if you can word it where it can be either a solid door or gate,
Graded gate.
rather than, exactly, that would be great. And, you know, if we can get a solid one, great. If we can't, the other's
The
acceptable.
preference would be a solid one. Let's maybe give the staff, is that good enough direction? Are you okay with that if we make our preference a solid one? But if it's not feasible, then staff has the latitude to work on an alternate. Can we all agree to that? You're good with that? You're good with that?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. Jonathan, can you craft that condition?
Chair
Okay.
Cosgrove, can I have you take a look at 7.7? There's a condition right now that says no gates are allowed. So I think that we also need direction, just for the record, that we remove or replace that condition.
Give me a second, sir,
That was 7.7.
got it, I'm on that, no, got it. Okay. So when we do our motion, we may want to substitute 7.7 with a new one. Okay. So that's what we'll do on that. Thanks for that housekeeping. David, I appreciate that. Commissioner Prescott-Loeffler, did you make all your comments known? Okay. Vice Chair Camp, how about you? Did you have any additional comments that you
I
want
just
to
want
make?
to say that I can certainly support the project with those conditions. We've been working on this project for a while. And it seems that the applicant has put in some significant effort to try and address not only the public comments, but our comments. And so I think it's going to be a good project. I'm excited to see the improvement of that property, which is not great to look at the moment, so.
Okay. Anything else? That's good. So let me try and wrap us up here. I'm going to go over my notes. We're all, and I want to just make sure we're all in agreement about a condition. I'm going to go through the conditions that I mentioned before again. I'm just going to look up and down here, make sure we're all good. No deliveries on, deliveries only on Avenida Victoria. We all good with that?
Get on construction or?
Nope, deliveries, once it's operational.
Operational deliveries.
Yes. All good? Okay. Jonathan, can you work on that
I have a
then?
question.
Yeah.
So does that include Amazon? I mean, if there's the historic home takes access up there and has gates,
No. This is for the commercial deliveries only.
okay?
Yeah.
So for the
Supplies.
For the functionality of the
Hotel
hotel.
and restaurant,
Okay, so
correct.
it makes about specific.
Yeah. And then I'd like to check everybody on their compatibility with restricting for noise, the hours of operation of the pool and spa. I don't care when it opens, but it needs to shut down at, say, 10 PM. Jim is okay with that. Are you all okay with that? So Jonathan, if we could get that. And then we've already discussed the garage door. I just want to make sure that that's everything.
There was the two staff conditions.
Yes, we had, is that David, we had the two staff conditions you wanted added is that 5.12? Or, can you review those again, please?
Yes, Tamara, can you bring up the PowerPoint?
What's that, Karen? Those are already in. Yeah.
Yeah, on the screen.
Yeah, it's 5.14 and 3.20. So this is, 5.14 is about signage, and then the other is about the Victoria frontage improvements. Is everybody okay with these? All right, so Jonathan, are you good? Are you prepared for the other? Do you mind reading those?
Yeah, if you'd like to make the motion, I can augment that and read into the record each of these
Yeah,
conditions.
I thought maybe read it beforehand so I can make sure my colleagues are comfortable with it, and then I'll make the motion, I'll incorporate it by reference.
Sure. So in addition to the conditions within Exhibit A of Attachment 1, the following modifications are proposed. Add condition 3.20, which states the applicant owner shall install a trench drain adjacent to the retaining wall along Avenida Victoria, north of the historic residence garages, for the purpose of conveying water from existing subdrains to the street, and shall also replace any displaced parking meters along Avenida Victoria at their own expense and to the standards and satisfaction of the city engineer. Remove condition 4.24, which addressed a landscape plan. Add condition 5.14, which states the applicant owner shall install signage in locations approved by the city that include the following. One, that there shall be public access to the viewing deck daily from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. and to the restaurant patio during operating hours. 2, contact information for the owner's representative responsible for maintaining the access area and to whom complaints can be directed. And 3, that misuse of the area is enforceable by the Orange County Sheriff's Department and that the city and subject to citation, the owner shall obtain written approval of the design, verbiage, and locations of the sign from the city prior to installation. The owner shall execute such other and further documentation as may be required by the Orange County Sheriff's Department and or the city to allow enforcement with respect to misuse of the area, including but not limited to under San Clemente Municipal Code Titles 8, 9, and 17. Add or modify condition 7.17, and this is the one that would be replacing the condition that David mentioned. So replacing 7.7 with a garage door or gate shall be required at the entry to the subterranean garage and shall be open during the greater of the public restaurant operating hours or 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. I have a reference that condition 4.22 already addresses the requirement for a photometric plan and specifically references the garage in relation to
Yes.
lighting. Modify condition 7.8 to replace all at the beginning. And so the new text would read at the beginning, I won't read the entire one of this one. Amplified sound and special events such as but not limited to weddings, banquets, are not permitted under this CUP and specifies that they may separately apply for other permits.
Perfect.
Condition 7.10 would be new, stating commercial deliveries shall be taken from the driveway or garage along the Avenida Victoria frontage. And condition 7.11 would be new, which states the pool and spa shall close at 10 p.m. daily.
Is everybody okay with what they heard? Any,
Yeah, one
Commissioner
one
McCann?
issue.
Yep.
So can you please more slowly reread the one about, I think it was the gate hours, you said the later of the restaurant, or 6 p.m. I mean, 6 p.m. sounds really early.
I was
and
thinking
then-
sunset, right, whenever it gets dark.
Well, I mean, you know, Bart's right, and the gate's gonna be going.
But he
up
said
and
the
down.
greater of, restaurant closing or, and then it'd be up to the staff.
Yeah, they had leeway.
I understand if the restaurant's not open 7 days a week, then it's 6 p.m., which in the summer would be,
Yeah, that's why I originally proposed sunset.
well, yeah, I'm just saying, I'm questioning the 6 p.m. I don't like that being in there as
Yeah.
6 p.m. Can we discuss that, or
Sure, yeah, let's, I mean,
does anybody have a different suggestion? It just sounds awfully early to me. I'm thinking more 10 p.m. Because Bart's right. I mean, the gate's gonna be going up and down, side to side, making noise every time someone's
And it's a big gate.
in and out
Yeah.
of there. I mean, that might be more annoying than shielded lighting.
So what do you suggest?
I propose 10 p.m.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay?
all right. Okay, anything else on what you heard? Are you good?
So do we need to,
Hear it back?
Jonathan, you're good with modifying that 6 p.m. to 10 p.m.?
Did you say 6? Oh,
you read
modifying
6
from
p.m.
6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Would the commission prefer that the reference to the restaurant operating hours just be removed and state simply 9 a.m. to 10 p.m.?
Go for the gate. Well,
9 a.m.'s too late.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah, I was
I think
more,
it said 7 a.m. It's more about the closing.
yeah, it's more about the closing. As long as it's light when it's open, like if it's, that's why I was referencing sunrise. Whenever that is, open the gate. That's usually 5 in the morning, 6 a.m.
Well, you're all bringing up good points, but I trust the staff to work with us to figure some of these things out. 10 p.m., I agree that sometimes it's going to be 10 p.m. I just kind of hate to try to figure that out.
Jonathan, can you reread it and maybe update it to reflect that you will work with the applicant using hours to be determined with the following guidelines provided by the, and then maybe add that to the beginning of it, and then you guys can work through it.
And so engineering kind of came up with the discouraging the fence because of the hours. Originally, when I spoke to
Yeah,
Danny,
you didn't want
was-
traffic backing up on the sidewalk, et cetera.
I was always thinking 7 a.m. until the later of 10 p.m. or the restaurant closing. And then, but then giving staff some operational, for the lifetime of the project, if there's needed to be changes, give some staff discretion at the city planner and city engineer. That's why the condition was kind of written the way it was, so that we could, if all of a sudden the applicant is getting complaints of noise, they may want to keep the gate open and rather just have security. If it's a chain gate and not providing a light barrier, they may just want to keep it open and not be a noise issue. And so we don't want to,
Until night.
Exactly.
Until people go to bed.
Yeah,
And so there might be operational issues, so if you can leave some wiggle room in the condition to where the city planner or city engineer can alter some things in the future if need be,
Okay.
it would be always good.
I'm going to jump in and say, I think 7.7 works as written.
that's no gate.
No, it's not. No gates or vehicle prohibitive devices shall be allowed at the main garage entrance unless specifically approved by the city planner and city engineer.
Yeah, that gives them the leeway. Instead of us trying to figure it out.
I'm good with that.
That was the idea.
Let's do that. I think we're getting too deep here into the weeds.
Okay. I just want to make sure that the default isn't nothing happens. That's my concern, which is how this feels to me. No gate. Unless the city decides they're going to approve what? I'm just not.
I
how's this
trust staff.
To bring a,
To deal with that issue.
Okay.
And the applicant.
Okay.
If they feel that the garage needs to be secure,
Jonathan, what's your thoughts on that?
This is a decision, this one is a decision of the commission.
Are you comfortable as this, that you will then take this issue forward with, if we leave 7.7 as is, are you comfortable then working with the applicant and then coming up with your own?
I think the public was mentioning security, though.
So I would say if the commission wants there to be a gate,
I want there to be a gate.
then the condition needs to be modified if you want
That's
there
what
to
my
be a gate.
concern.
I think the applicant should have discretion, but if we're
I think-
just broad in security and gate, I don't see that that would be a problem.
Here's the thing, we're talking to an applicant. We're not talking to the operator. We don't know who the operator is going to be. We need to get this right tonight. So I'm not comfortable with 7.7. There needs to be a gate. I understand there's the devil's in the details. I'm not suggesting we dictate what that is. I'm just suggesting because of the light spill and visual impact that we'll have on drivers and the view, as well as security, there needs to be an enclosure, a gate. What that gate looks like, when it's open and shut, I want to leave that to the staff to work out with the applicant, but I want there to be a gate. So if maybe we just remove the hours of operation for now and just leave it up to staff to work out how the gate will be implemented, how the hours of operation will be put in place. But that's what I think we should have. Can you, maybe re-modify it again to?
Yeah, I'll respond and reread. I do recommend that we start with some hours. 'Cause
Okay.
if we want to have something enforceable, then I think we need to have something within this section. So as rewritten, it would say a garage door or gate shall be required at the entry to the subterranean garage and shall be open from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Hours may be modified by the city planner in concurrence with the city engineer. So as written in that way, the applicant or operator can't unilaterally make those changes. They need to approach the city, state their reasons for requesting the change, but it gives staff the latitude to allow for those changes without requiring an amendment or a modification to the entitlement.
I'm okay with
I
that.
think that that's pretty simple
Yeah.
and gives a lot of
Everybody else
latitude.
okay? Great. You okay, Scott?
I think it should be up to the applicant to do a gate, but I'm okay with that as written.
All right, so we have a new 7.7 then. And that was all of the conditions, right?
Correct.
Okay, is everyone comfortable now moving forward? All right, I'm going to go ahead and, in the spirit of moving us forward, I'm going to make a motion. I want to, first of all, thank the applicant. You have been working on this before it even came to the city for years. What I have observed, both in the multiple sessions in design review and in our 2 public hearings that have gone on for many hours, a willingness to listen to the neighbors and accommodate their concerns. I want to recognize that and say thank you, because at the end of the day, we're all trying to live together, and we want to make sure that we can. And this is the forum where we do it in public. Sometimes it takes longer, sometimes it's messy, but it's our process. And you know what? It works. So that's transparency. We're doing it in public. And I want to thank you for that. I want to thank the public for being here multiple occasions, not just for our hearing, but at design review, expressing your concerns. I hope you feel heard. There's probably 15 new conditions because of what you members of the public have said. That's a lot. So I hope you feel heard, because I definitely heard you. I know my colleagues have heard you. With that, I want to move the staff recommendations that we determine that the project is categorically exempt from the requirements of CEQA pursuant to the CEQA guidelines, Section 15301, Class 1, existing facilities, and Section 15331, Class 31, historical resource restoration, rehabilitation, and Section 15332, Class 32, infill development project, and then adopt Resolution PC 24-013 as modified by our city planner, Mr. Lightfoot, with his, by reference, I want to incorporate those new conditions or updated conditions, and approving the public hearing project 24-249 Seacliff Boutique Motel and Restaurant, again, subject to attached conditions of approval. Need a second?
I'll second.
Great. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Congratulations, you have 10 days of appeal, and then you'll have your,
And 90 seconds.
He wanted 90
Yeah.
seconds.
Can I have 75 seconds?
all right.
Thank you very much for the unanimous approval. We definitely talked earlier, the project did get better as a result of the process. I think, just being candid, there are some mechanical problems with your process that are really bad, and I think you need to work on that, and I think you are. That said, the people that we worked with, the staff, Jonathan, David, Adam Atamian, the DRSC, and the Planning Commission, I think you all did a great job. So the people that, and I'm speaking for myself and for Tony, are very, very creative architects, and the patience of the Dunwalls that are here to keep in the game. Everybody involved really did a good job at a personal level, I think. You do need to work on the process, though.
You mean the permitting review?
Mechanical
Yeah,
problems.
that's something you could take up with Jonathan offline. Okay, good enough.
They've heard about that, so
Okay.
I'll leave it at that. But anyway,
They're always willing to
I
hear
wanted
how they can improve their process.
There's a distinction between the process and the people involved in the process.
Yeah.
We're very, very appreciative of the people in the process.
Thank you. All right, are we good? Yeah, congratulations, and thank you again to everybody for your time and investment in making San Clemente a better place to live, work, and visit. Are we good to move on to the next item, everybody? Great. Item 8B is next up on our agenda. If I could ask the last agenda item to take their conversation to the outside, that would be awesome. This next item is a development permit, 24-014. It's the Rimland Residence. It's a request for a development permit for the demolition of a 1,155 square feet of an existing two-story, single-family residence, and then the construction of a first and second-story addition totaling 2,229 square feet and a 344 square foot roof deck within the residential low zone abutting a historic resident at 201 Esplanade. And normally, projects that are of this nature don't come before planning, but because it abuts a historical building, it does. Therefore, we're going to have a staff report from John Campa. And
Mr. Chair, before you do that, can we have disclosures as far as?
absolutely, I should have asked for that up front. Did you have some?
Yes, I have been out to the property twice.
Okay. Does anybody else have disclosures or ex parte communications on this one? Okay.
Just in case somebody wrote down my license plate and thought I was casing the joint.
All right. Commissioner Prescott Loeffler is a drive-by planner there. Okay, Jonathan, you have the floor to present the staff report.
Good evening, Chair Cosgrove and Planning Commissioners. John Champa will be presenting this evening the Rimland Residence Project. Just for some context, the project site is 6,900 square foot lot located within the residential low zoning designation as well as within the coastal zone. The project, the existing structure was constructed in 1953, and just to note a correction to the staff report, the existing house is not 1,924 square feet. It's actually 2,651 square feet. It is improved with it is 2 stories with an attached 428 square foot 2-car garage. As stated, it is across the street from a historic resource located at 201 Avenue Esplanade. That was not the button to use. There we go. Thank you. Here we have a rendering of the, there we go. Here we have a rendering of the proposed project, which I'll go over in more detail later on in the presentation, just for context in terms of the proposed project before you this evening. Here we have the existing residence, which is representative of its period of construction in the 1950s. As you can see, it is 2 stories. We've got the Santiago elevation as well as the intersection of Ola Vista and Santiago. As you can see, limited visibility along that elevation, which is the closest abutting portion of the property to the historic resource. So the proposed project scope is to demolish a portion of the westerly side of the structure, which would be 1,155 square feet, encompassing a portion of the first and second story. The addition would be 1,195 square feet on the first floor, as well as 1,034 square feet on the second story, which would bring the overall structure to 3,725 square feet. Project also includes a 412 square foot deck along the South Ola Vista front orientation of the lot, as well as a 344 square foot roof deck that would be centrally located in the structure. As stated, a development permit is required due to the project's location adjacent to a historic resource. Here we have, just for context, the representative with the balloon, the subject property, and as you can see, its orientation and different lot orientation to the historic resource. Staff did measure the distancing between the 2 structures across Ola Vista. Is the detached garage is 110 linear feet away from the property, and then the back of the historic house is 145 linear feet, as well as some mature landscaping that's on the historic property, as well as the subject property. Here we have the site plan of the proposed project. The area in green is or gray is what is proposed as the new addition, as well as the general footprint of the proposed demolition. As you can see here, the garage is non-conforming to the required 18-foot front yard, or 18-foot street setback, where 10-foot 9 inches is provided. However, the project is not demolishing or adding more than 50% of the structure, so it's allowed to be retained in that non-conforming element. However, the addition and all of its components are in compliance with all the applicable setbacks as far as the residential low zoning designation. Here we have the elevation of the structure. This is just a 2D black and white, illustrating the different roof elevation or roof elements that have been incorporated in the project, as well as different materials. I'll discuss it in the rendering, which will allow you to illustrate the components much more. But as you can see, there's facade breaks here with the different features included in the facade, as well as the deck along the front. Here, the north elevation at the bottom of your screen is located along Avenida Santiago, just for overall context of the project. Again, the project is proposing a roof deck that is centrally located above the two-story addition that's proposed. The stair access is internal to the structure, and then the roof elements are built up around the roof to provide as a railing, as well as conceal the roof deck to ensure a comprehensive design for the project. Here again, we have the rendering of the project. It's a coastal contemporary design with the use of stone as well as stucco. As you can see here, the deck on the second floor along that front elevation is open to limit the massing, as well as provide a stepped element there to further reduce the massing and provide articulation to that front elevation. As well as you can see the different roof elements that have been incorporated in to provide additional interest to the structure's design. So a summary of the project analysis is that it does comply with all the applicable development standards for the residential low zoning designation. However, it does maintain the non-conforming garage as stated due to the fact that the development is proposed below the threshold necessary to bring it into compliance. It does provide a larger than necessary setback along that South Ola Vista front orientation, and that just the deck itself is almost 24 feet setback from the front property line, where 20 is required. And then the residential portion is 31 feet from Ola Vista. So in the analysis, there would be no impacts to the historic resource due to the separation of the two structures in the project's design, as well as maintaining the existing landscaping, as well as enhancing that with the landscape design that's proposed. So the design review subcommittee did review this project on June 12th of this year, and was supportive of the project for the elements identified in the summary, and that it complies with the standards, as well as the significant setback and the overall project design. So with that, staff is recommending the project be listed as categorically exempt from CEQA, as well as recommending approval of the project subject to the draft conditions of approval. So with that, that concludes staff's presentation. Staff and the applicant are available for any questions.
Great, Jonathan, thank you for that. Any quick questions of staff before I have one speaker card? Okay. All right, we have the applicant's architect, and so Austin Peters, come on up and make your presentation.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioners.
There you go.
Again, my name is Austin Peters, the architect and owner's representative. Thank you again for your time, and appreciate your consideration tonight. John, if you wouldn't mind pull up maybe the rendering. John, if you could pull up that again. So just to touch base on the owner's main goal, really the main goal of the owners is to make this substantial improvement to the property for their use as a primary residence. They bought it in 2011, renovated it, had family live in it, and have enjoyed spending time in it over the years, and have really come to love both the home and the neighborhood. and that's really been their impetus to this project. The overall design strategy to touch on. Currently, actually, the back half is two-story and the front half is one-story. The back half was built newer, and the front half is quite a bit older. And the front half, all the spaces are really tight and don't currently work very well for the family. Whereas the back half, it's newer, they're more open space, and it was their goal to preserve as much as possible. That's why the overall decision was made to keep the back two-story of the house. And maintain as much of that as possible with a few modifications here and there, and then completely remove the front single-story portion, which the older portion of the building, and that's where the addition occurs. So that was kind of like the clear cut. It was, well, it didn't really make sense to renovate the whole thing because the front would have taken so much. And so that was the initial strategy. The other portion of it was their desire to make the front yard, the front area much more usable. Currently, it's a little cramped. And so we wanted to maintain that as sort of their outdoor living area. If I could touch base again, point to the rendering. So the tower that you see is actually the beginning of the addition, and the strategy with the roof was to work with the existing as much as possible. So you can see on the very left, which is over the garage, there's a hip roof, and then you can see the shed roof coming down next to that. And so that pattern was somewhat repeated in order to create that, excuse me, that roofline rhythm. And as you can see, the roof lines in the very front were converted to a hip as opposed to gable to create to reduce the massing of the building. And then the further attempt to reduce the massing in the front, as you can see, that second story is actually stepped back quite a bit, and that the lower single-story portion is a an open loggia area. The other thing that John mentioned, there was a big effort to tuck in the roof deck. And as you can see from this rendering, which I believe is fairly accurate from a massing standpoint and material standpoint, it really wouldn't see much. There's just a hint of the top of the guard rail that would be seen from the deck. I'm not even sure you would recognize that as a guard wall, but it is a guard wall. And so that was tucked away as much as possible. The other point to make, and from the existing photographs, you can see from this rendering, so that the difference from the grade between the sidewalk at the corner of Ola Vista and the current front yard is substantial. And so there's sort of this abrupt difference there. And so what we did is actually lowered the grade of that front yard by about a foot, which allowed us to remove actually one of the site walls. So currently there's roughly 3 site wall terraces in that front yard, and that's been reduced down to 2, plus the low fence that you see here. And that was a further attempt to reduce the mass and the impact relative to the sidewalk in the street. The other thing to mention is just that the mix of material and massing. So there was an attempt made to both work with the existing building in the back and not sort of reinvent the wheel on that one, and yet create enough richness. So as you can see, the roof lines, the massings are offset, and as well as the material differentiation with the brick on the bottom and the stucco on the top, the metal rail to create a rich mix of materials that we feel would be very cohesive in the neighborhood. Just to touch base real quick on the historic home across the street. Again, I think what's first to point out is that we couldn't really identify a prevailing style in the neighborhood. It's pretty mixed, and so we do feel that this style of building with the mixed material is very consistent with the neighborhood, as well as the historic home across the street. We also recognize that the house across the street appears to be orientated the other direction, and in fact, as you can see, there's also quite a large tree or cluster of trees between our house and that house that currently creates a barrier between the two, a pretty significant barrier, actually. So I think that summarizes my presentation. Again, I appreciate your time tonight and your consideration. I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Do we have any questions for Mr. Peters? No? None? All right, thank you. So Commissioner McCann's got a question for you, Jonathan?
Have we heard from the owner of the historic resource regarding this?
No, we have not.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing and move to commission discussion. Who has comments?
I can start.
Okay, Commissioner Camp. Or, yeah.
We did review this one time at Design Review Subcommittee. We had a couple comments, but it was pretty minor. I don't think any changes were made, right, John? Based on our,
Correct.
okay. We're looking at a couple things. I think the findings we can definitely make. With regard to the historic residence, it's diagonal across the street. It's a significant distance. I think the design, especially the massing and the use of materials, I like the fact that they went with the hip roofs, especially as they face the historic structure. There's a pretty good setback, and it does terrace sort of up to that yard area, even though it's more transparent now, which I think is an improvement. I don't see an impact on the historic residence. The fact that they use this sort of a plinth of material, the stone, I think also helps to sort of layer the architecture. There's a clear identification of the entry, but it's not overbearing, on Santiago. So, I have positives. I'm positive on this project. I think that the architect did a nice job of addressing all the potential issues. One question, or one thing I think we want to consider, is there's a lot of demo going on, and there's a fair amount of mature landscape on the property, especially on that side, South Ola Vista. Is there an intent to preserve some of the mature landscape on that side, especially?
There is, yeah. Landscape plan was proposed, and many of the trees are to remain. Yep.
Okay. And it looks like, at least on the rendering, those may be kings, or are those called queens, or
Yeah.
what?
If I could clarify, the rendering purposely doesn't include all of the landscaping, because then the house,
See the
you
house.
just wouldn't be able to see the house. So it's there, but they're shown sort of mini in some cases. So this isn't necessarily an accurate depiction of the landscaping from a plant-by-plant standpoint. I would say it accurately depicts the overall look and feel of it, but it was the goal that also the home be in view in the landscaping.
Okay, so is the intent to remove some mature trees to open up the view into the home and out, I guess?
Actually, the opposite. The intent was to keep as many of the mature trees as possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, those are generally my
Yep.
comments. Hopefully that's helpful.
Well, we're in discussion mode, so does anyone else want to?
Sure.
Yeah, okay, Commissioner
jump in.
Crandall?
Yeah, I want to agree with Commissioner Camp and say it was wonderful working with this applicant who did his homework, studied our codes, our requirements and all, and complied with them and didn't try to do anything out of the ordinary. And I think the end result is very nice. I can certainly make the findings. And I think this is the first time we've had a project submitted by you, is that correct? That's correct. And it's nice that, it's not easy to learn all our guidelines and quirky requirements, but he did a wonderful job of it. So I can make the findings and thank him for doing his homework.
Yep. Commissioner McCann, comments?
I think it's a great project, and I do want to point out that, like the applicant's architect said, in front of the historic resource, there's a very significant tree that really, is a barrier, like exactly what he said. So I don't see this as impacting the historic resource other than as a positive. Hopefully, we'll get an approval here and get you on your way.
Commissioner Prescott Loeffler, comments?
I had one question as far as, I couldn't tell on any of the renderings here. You had 3 parking spaces. Are you giving up one? Or are there still 3 on the side where the garage is?
Yeah, the number of parking spaces is unchanged.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yep.
Okay. I want to compliment you on the design and fitting into the neighborhood very nicely. Also, the rooftop deck, there are several rooftop decks in that area. You can see those decks, you can hardly see this one. So nicely hidden away. Since I've been by there a couple of times, the historic property across the street, in my opinion, is not affected in any way. It looks really nice for the neighborhood. I can support this project.
Okay, and I'm similar, and it does not appear that this project will have any negative visual impact on the historic resource located across at 201 Esplanade. It's over 110 feet away. There's a lot of landscaping in between, so a lot of air in between, and I think the design will fit nicely into the neighborhood. So with that, open to a motion.
I'll make a motion. I move we approve, we determine the project is categorically exempt from CEQA pursuant to State CEQA Guidelines 14 CCR 15301 as written in staff report, and also adopt Resolution PC 24-017, approving development permit 24-041, Rimland residence, subject to the conditions of approval provided in the staff report.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made by Commissioner McCann and seconded by Commissioner Prescott Loeffler. Is there any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. And congratulations, you'll have your permit in 10 days pending any appeal, which is unlikely. So congratulations on that, and thank you.
Good luck tonight. Thank you, John.
Okay, our next item. Yes, thank you, John. Appreciate it. Is item 8C, and this is also a public hearing, and it's for project 24-246, Rasta Taco Mixed Use. It's a request for a development permit, 24-247, and a conditional use permit, CUP 22-246, to develop a mixed-use building with 2 ground floor commercial spaces, including a restaurant with beer, wine, and alcohol sales for indoor and outdoor consumption, and a residential unit and ADU on the second floor above. Jonathan, are you making the presentation?
Yes, I am, Chair.
Okay. You have the floor, sir.
Chair, can we ask for disclosures
Yes,
again?
sorry, I
That's
forgot to
okay.
do that. Are there any disclosures or ex parte communications on this?
I'd like to disclose that I do like tacos, and my wife says my favorite holiday is Taco Tuesday. So I'm pro taco in general.
That might be a little too much, but we'll.
Yeah. Therapy for that. I have visited the location, and that's about all I can share.
Okay. Jonathan, we'll take your staff report now. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so this item is for a new development on El Camino Real at 424 North El Camino Real. And I'm starting off with just an image of the project so that you have a sense of what is being proposed from the beginning, and then we'll work through the background, what the site looks like currently, and some of the process this has gone through. So the image here includes first floor commercial with residential above. This site plan shows both the existing footprint and the proposed. So in red, you'll see it's a very small existing commercial structure on this property that's to be demolished and replaced with a larger commercial structure, but one that still takes up less than half of the lot. And in a zone that requires no setbacks, there are setbacks on both the sides and, of course, the rear. This slide indicates the location. The coloration is the zoning, so the purple is our mixed-use zone color, and the cross street there is Palizada. So this is a location that many people will be driving by as they enter the city from that primary gateway. The zone specifically is our mixed-use 3.0 zone. It's within 2 overlays, the architectural and central business overlay. This property is beyond the coastal zone boundary, so there is no coastal zone application in this instance. This image shows the existing street scene, and the Salon Real there, front and center, is the current commercial building to be demolished. The property includes both land to the left and right of that building, and as a component of this project, the driveway to the right would be removed. So one of the public benefits that's not really directly accounted for would be the addition of additional new on-street parking as a piece of that. These images show additional current conditions. The first one is just a side view of that building, again showing how small the existing structure is. And the other is the alley view. One of the challenges that the applicants have had to work with is there is an SDG&E pole on this property. There's an easement that runs parallel to the alley at the rear. There is an attachment within the report that identifies the DPR form, that's the Department of Parks and Rec form, that addresses the historic nature and integrity of the adjacent building at 420 North El Camino Real. It has a fairly simple but asymmetric construction with this front shed roof that is oriented towards El Camino Real, and to the right of this image is where the proposed project would be built. This image gives a sense of the massing, but I'll add that this was one of the images reviewed by design review, and modifications to the facade have changed, but the general massing remains the same to give, again, the context next to the historic building. There's 3 different images here, and so a few of the things that design review addressed included a sense of updating the project to incorporate more substantial massing at the ground floor. That's a hallmark of Spanish colonial revival, that you don't have thin structural supports on the ground floor supporting a large mass above. So the applicant worked to address those comments. There was some comments related to the spacing of the openings on the front entry. And then on the far right, a few site plan comments, including, for instance, relocating a restroom in the arcade area to make better spacing for public seating. So on the left is the version that was reviewed initially by design review, and on the right is the updated version addressing some of those comments. I'm not going to go through each of these, but the project is consistent with development standards. This table is available within the staff report as well. As noted previously, in this mixed-use zone, there are no setbacks required. There are, however, setbacks proposed, including a 5-foot setback on the side that is nearest the historic resource. We did have a representative from the Historic Society participate in the design review subcommittee meeting, or provided a letter of support for this project. So staff's recommendation is to determine that the project is categorically exempt and to adopt resolution PC 24018 approving this project. There are a few special conditions identified here, and I'll go through those if there's any questions. Mainly, a couple to point out is that the largest landscape area on the site is around the SDG&E pole, and SDG&E requires full clearance unless that landscape is irrigated. So maintaining irrigation there is something that needs to occur if we want to have landscape there. So that's a condition. Another one is a lot merger. There's a thin, this is a full lot and a partial lot, and so to be compliant with building code, a lot merger will be required. And finally, as is standard with use permits that involve alcohol, some established hours of operation related to the alcohol service. Okay, and that concludes the staff presentation. I'll leave the slide on the recommendation slide. The applicant is present, both the property owner, Mr. Melendez, as well as the designer, Mr. Forstel. They don't intend to provide a presentation, but they are available for questions.
Great, Jonathan, thank you.
Chair?
Yes.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
Thank you. So regarding disclosures, I got to thinking about how close it maybe to a property I own, and this property is probably just barely within the 1,000-foot radius of a property I own, but I don't believe that it would have a material impact on my property value, but I did want to disclose that.
It's within the 1,000 feet, you're saying?
I think it touches, probably it's just barely within 1,000 feet, but not the 500-foot circle.
Gotcha.
The 1,000-foot
Okay.
circle.
Okay, and it's not your primary residence?
The map shows my primary residence, but doesn't show my investment property,
Yeah.
which is adjacent, but so it probably touches, but again, I don't feel like this would have a material impact.
So I'll just do a check with our city attorney and just make sure she's in agreement. and
Correct.
then-
You would have to make that determination on that analysis, but if you're confident that there's no material impact, that's fine.
I'm confident. There's a huge barrier between being the freeway, so, among other things.
You're such a land baron that it's going to probably happen all the time.
Okay. Let's turn to my colleagues and see if there's any questions for staff or the applicant at this time.
I have one.
Okay, Vice Chair Camp has a question.
Jonathan, did you request at least a preliminary study of signage and how it would fit on this elevation on El Camino Real?
No, we have not requested a preliminary sign plan.
Okay. I think we mentioned that in the design review subcommittee. We did. So I guess I can ask the applicant, did you consider the signage and where that might go?
The last time we met at DRSC, I had shown Rasta Taco up there above that arch. And then at that meeting, we had rearranged the restroom, and this is the new elevation, and I neglected to put any signage on there. I was also under the opinion that all the signage required a separate permit, and until DRC had never considered it in the plan.
Yeah, but we want to see that there's an appropriate place for signage. There's a couple of hoopies, or I don't know what they are, above that arch. It's like 3 rectangular objects. Can you explain what those are?
Yeah, those are stucco projections. And at the second DRC, I presented like a photographic display of how those look on a building that's probably down in like the 1500 block of El Camino Real.
Okay, well, I guess we can get into discussion, but might suggest removal of that detail to provide for signage. Especially, there's still two tenants, right? The taco and coffee, or whatever.
Speak to that.
There could be.
Okay, so there could be. Okay, that's an answer, right? That's an answer. There is a demising wall shown on the ground floor. for
Yes,
Commercial space.
two units, but Mr. Melendez is the primary owner of the property, and he intends to live on the second floor and run his business out of the first floor.
Yeah, no, I'm not talking about the residential. I'm talking about the commercial. The intent, it looks like, is to have 2 separate tenants. I mean, we talked about that in DRSC as well. And do you run, I don't mean to be personal here, but do you run the taco business? Or do you have a tenant?
In Laguna Beach?
Yeah,
Yes, I own it.
okay. All right. I mean, those are the only questions I have for now.
Okay, so your concern is just future planning for signage? Okay. Is there any, Commissioner McCann?
Yeah, can we talk about the height? On the, on the sheet A1, it says height analysis. And guess I'm looking at you, Jonathan. And I'm familiar with height analysis, the methodology relative to each separate roof plane. But this, what they've done there doesn't look like it makes any sense at all or any compliance with that. But then in the staff report on page 4, under development standards, it talks about height, 2 stories with a maximum plate height of 26 feet and a maximum top of roof of 33 feet, which is that would not be like the individual roof plane analysis that I'm thinking of. So kind of what is the max roof height and/or do these jive or not jive?
Yeah, good question. So the intent of that breakdown of the two different heights is to encourage some form of pitched roofing elements on new development projects. And so a flat roof would be limited to that 26-foot element, but a pitched roof would have that higher height. And in this case, somewhat similar to the residence we looked at before, the roofing material also serves as the guardrail around the roof deck. So the highest point is functionally that guardrail, but that elevation is consistent all the way around. So where in some other projects, we would have, 3 or 4 different roof elements, the consistent highest point is the guardrail that wraps around the top of the project here, and the height of that over the surveyed or over the topo survey results in an average of just under 30, where 33 would be permitted.
Okay, so the height analysis that's shown in the lower left corner of sheet A1 is completely immaterial to this discussion.
So the height analysis is going to be the 231.6 is the highest point of the project and is consistent, I believe, I'll have to confirm, but with the height of the guardrail around the roof deck.
Okay, well, I'm confused about what they did, because they seem to label the 4 corners of the building as the heights they were analyzing.
The 4 corners are the, from the topography and the existing grades.
Right, but it's labeled as at the actual far corners of the building and not the corners of the guardrail that you're talking about, and so
My,
they're labeled out there.
On the corner, yeah.
my determination of A was meant to be the top of those stacks, which is essentially level with the top of the guardrail.
Oh, I see, okay.
Either
so you're just
way, either way, I think I'm about 6 feet under.
Okay, that's fine. So you're saying that you were comparing, okay, I see what you did. You said the total top elevation, and then you compared it to the 4 corners of the footprint.
Yes.
Got it. So we're satisfied, Jonathan, that we're in compliance with our max height.
Yes, I would add to that there's also an allowed within our encroachments 2 additional feet for stacks or chimneys. So yes, we're satisfied.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And then I'm not a restaurateur. I was a little bit surprised in this plan isn't really dimensioned of the size appearing relatively small for the restaurant 1 and restaurant 2. You guys are confident that those are adequate to,
His Laguna Beach store is tiny.
okay?
Laguna's only 200 square feet, so this is about double, triple.
Okay.
Same committee, we have more talk over here.
And that includes a kitchen?
Yeah,
Wow,
yeah, it's the smallest restaurant in California.
okay,
That's what I've been told.
okay. Great. No
But I
further
mean,
questions.
the building, there's not much more we can put in there. We're at max for parking and building and.
No, and I'm not saying that. I'm just, it just seems very small. Or it wouldn't have surprised me, for example, if that was 1 restaurant instead of 2.
If you guys want to give me a few extra 100 square feet, I'd be happy to take it.
I think I want to go to Laguna Beach and check that out.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. A lot of people come by just to look at the kitchen, because what we've done there is, it's pretty amazing.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
All right. Commissioner Crandall, any questions? Commissioner Prescott Loeffler?
No, I read through
Okay.
it, I got my answers, we're good.
All right. And Steve, you had nothing further? Okay, so that leaves me. Jonathan, I just want to make sure I understand the alcohol beverage operational approval here. Is there, he will also need to get will he also need to get a permit from the alcohol beverage control? That will be required as well, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And then, what I'm concerned about is the site of consumption. Are we restricting it to on-site consumption?
Yes, there is a condition that indicates essentially signage shall be placed, no alcohol beyond this point at the exit of that arcade
Okay.
into the public right-of-way.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure this is compatible, with our community standards, that it's for consumption with food and not just a grab and go for mixed drinks and so forth. Right? So that's where I'm coming from.
It's not a bar.
Yeah, it's not a bar.
Or saloon.
Want to make sure that yes, okay.
I don't think they give those licenses out anymore.
Yeah, well, I just want to make sure I understood that what we were saying here, we're restricting that too. Okay. I don't have any other questions. Shall we move into discussion? I'll open it up. I'm going to start with our Vice Chair Camp. Since you had a lot of comments earlier, why don't you start us off?
Okay. I'm concerned about signage. I know that that's under separate permit, and that will be reviewed, but I do think that we need to provide allowance for appropriate sign. We did talk about it, and we've got a little more wall area above that arch in the front. I think it is an improvement from the initial design, but I don't think that detail, I think that's redundant. We have the detail up at the top where the gable, straight above the arch. I think that's probably a good place. If we have two tenants, possibly, I don't know where we're going to put the other than possibly to the right of that arched entry, you could have another tenant sign. But I think with a commercial building like this, we need to consider how that's going to look with signage, because it's going to have a sign. Beyond that, I think it's a great addition to that location. I'm glad we're going to knock that puppy down. And this will be, much improved, especially exiting there at Polyzada. We talked about the materials. They're within the standards. I think we can make the findings. I like the fact that they took Commissioner Crandall's recommendation on the restroom access. That's a big improvement. Simplified the building. I'm assuming, Commissioner Crandall, you had a chance to review the drawing, because last time it didn't match. And I think it does this time. I took a look at that as well.
I struggled with it when we first saw the project, and I can't say this is my cup of tea, but it meets all the requirements, and I can make the findings, so.
And it's an improvement on the first one we saw, for sure.
And can we put, how would we do it, Jonathan? Just to make the comment that when they do their signage application, it would sure be nice if they did it before they got too far into working drawings and all, that we can select at least the location, if not the shape of the signs. That would solve any problem, so you don't find out, we can't find a place. But if we can get that signage permit application going, that might be helpful.
Yeah, I think there's a number of ways that we can handle that. If the commission would like that to be kind of an old business item at design review, that could be an option, just so that subcommittee provides any feedback on final sign locations.
Yeah, can I just jump in? Please. I'm thinking, just process-wise, for this small size, would the signage program be administerial, or would it actually be public hearing?
It can be ministerial depending on the size of the signage. So we are within the architectural overlay, so businesses are limited to 25 square feet and buildings, 25 square feet of signage. So exceeding that, which could happen, but it's not a very large building. So there is a potential path where they could go through ministerial approval.
Would it be appropriate if we did tacked on a condition that the signage program be reviewed by DRSC as maybe a way of addressing this? Is that appropriate?
Certainly.
Okay. So maybe that's a path forward.
Well, I think we could remove that detail. I mean, we have the ability.
Yeah, well, why don't you discuss your proposal there?
Well, I'm just suggesting that that's a redundant detail that prevents us from having a primary wall area for signage. So let's approve it with that being
Removed.
taken out.
Okay.
That's one way to solve it.
Yep. So, Commissioner Prescott Loeffler, did you have any discussion on this that you wanted to have?
Appreciate design review. They've improved the project. I agree with removing the 3, whatever those are, for signage. And I think hoopies, and I think we could probably take care of it tonight.
Okay. All right, so Vice Chair Kemp, would you like to lead us on a way forward here?
Okay, I believe that we can make the findings. We would like to add a condition to remove the triple, I guess, rectangular detail above the arch to potentially, I don't know if we need to say to potentially provide for signage. I think we would also like to add a condition that we have a discretionary review of the proposed signage with the design review subcommittee. I'm not sure how that, Jonathan, how that would work, because that's not an approval body.
But I think the way I'm envisioning is that if it's if they're within guidelines and it's an ministerial approval, it's at the discretion of the city planner to seek the recommendations of DRSC, and then we would submit them to staff.
Yeah, correct. So if it's a administrative or ministerial review, then staff would just take that direction into account, but the final action would be by staff. And then alternatively, if the request in the future that comes in is of a size or other style that would require a discretionary sign permit, that requires planning commission review. And so design review would be required before returning to planning commission in that instance.
Okay. So hopefully that's clear in terms of our direction. I think we can find that the project is categorically exempt from California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to state CEQA guidelines 15302, Class 2 replacement or reconstruction, 15303, Class 3B and 3C, new construction of a building under 10,000 square feet in an urbanized area, which includes up to 6 residential units, there being only 2 on this project, and 15332, Class 32 infill development projects. With all of those requirements being met, I recommend that we approve this project development permit 24-247 for a conditional use permit, CUP 22-246, to develop a new mixed-use building with 2 ground floor commercial spaces, including a restaurant with beer, wine, and alcohol sales for indoor and outdoor consumption, and a residential unit and an ADU on the second floor above. With those comments that I mentioned, I assume that's adequate.
Yeah, and I'll just read real quick, a proposed condition is new condition 4.20, which falls within our prior to issuance of permits section. So the keystone detail above the arch shall be removed to create space for adequate signage, and the final sign location and materials shall be reviewed by the design review subcommittee prior to issuance of sign permits.
So you've made a motion. I'll take that as a motion. I'll second it with Jonathan's additional conditions incorporated by reference. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and I'll second that. Are we good with that motion? Okay, and did I hear you also included in your motion was that it's categorically exempt from CEQA as well, right? Okay, I just want to make sure I heard that. So we have a motion to approve staff recommendations with those two new conditions as read by Jonathan. And it's been moved, seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay, staff's clear on the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Congratulations. In 10 days, you'll have your permit. Thank you for your patience. And
Good luck, yes.
We're gonna put a giant neon sign. So I'm just kidding.
and we'll talk about that.
Yeah, run it by it.
All right, that concludes our public hearings, and that takes us to item 9, new business. And annually, we reorganize our commission. The city council normally does it in November, right after the election. We are appointed at the end of the city's fiscal year, which ends in June. We went through appointments. I was reappointed to a 2-year term, as was Commissioner Prescott Loeffler, as was Commissioner McCacken, who's absent tonight, and also Commissioner McCann. So we just went through that process and were reappointed. And so we annually, right after those appointments, go through the selection of our chair, vice chair, and chair pro tem, as well as we make our selection of who sits on the design review subcommittee. That's item 9. I'm going to turn it over to Jonathan to run that. But before I do, I just want to thank my colleagues for your support and patience while I've been chair. It's been a privilege to be the chair the last year. I've really learned a lot. I've enjoyed working with the staff. I've taken extra time to do that as chair, and it's been a very rewarding experience, and I've enjoyed, Jonathan, working with you often, and Tamara with you as well. So I just want to thank everybody for that opportunity. I've enjoyed it, so thank you. And with that, Jonathan, can you run this item for us?
Yes, I can, Chair. Okay, I sent an email with the policy. So to clarify, I'll just run the first portion of this. It reflects the same procedure that the City Council follows, which is to start with open nominations. Nominations are only open to you, the commission, to members of the commission. So I cannot nominate someone. No one in the public audience can nominate someone, just you. And then we would proceed by collecting votes. And the first to receive a majority of the votes would take the position as chair. This is not something that goes by motion and second. It's simply open nominations, and then we will go through the list of anyone who is nominated to collect those votes. Once we determine the chair, I'll hand part 2 over, and it'll be replicated, but the chair will run the nomination and votes for a vice chair. So that's going to be the procedure, and we can get going with that now by open nomination. So that I am open to receiving any nominations.
Before we start, can we see who is interested in being chair?
I'm happy to continue, if that's the pleasure of the group.
Can I weigh in on this?
Sure, absolutely.
So, I mean, I like if everybody gets the opportunity, if everybody wants the opportunity. And on previous commission, generally, people kind of stepped up from vice chair to chair and so forth. I know that currently Steve is vice chair and Dr. McCacken is chair pro tem. Is that accurate? So I'm curious, Steve, are you interested in serving as chair?
I'm not.
That's why I asked the question for.
Okay, well,
See who's interested.
And the reason is, number one, I think Commissioner Cosgrove did a great job. I'd like to have him continue. Secondly, I would like to continue as chair of DRSC, which takes additional effort.
for sure.
I'm running a business, which is requiring a lot of my attention, so I just don't think that I could devote the amount of time that I think is required. you guys, the last two said, and of course Commissioner Crandall set a pretty high bar as I looked at it. And I don't think I would do it justice, So I'm happy to continue as vice chair, but I would really like to especially continue on the DRSC, which I know we're not talking about yet.
Right.
But I feel like I'm qualified for that spot.
Okay, out of curiosity, do we know anything about does anybody know anything about Dr. McCacken's interest in
I don't.
serving?
I don't know.
I don't.
Okay. Karen, are you interested in,
I am also running a new business that
I know you're very busy.
Yes. So it's going to take some time to get that business where it's supposed to be. So I also appreciate Cameron's way of conducting the nature of this business, respectful, works well with staff, keeps things fluid, and somehow we all seem to come to a conclusion. I feel that we're going in the right direction, so I would be supportive of him taking the lead still one more year, possibly bringing up the pro tem Dr. McCacken up to vice. But he's not here, but I'm okay with that. Unless, Scott, you want to move into vice?
No, I'm,
You're running a business
my-
and you.
I mean, Cameron's done an awesome job. I mean, I don't know if you're interested. I would be willing to, but I'm not seeking it out. I'm not interested per se. Quite frankly, I'd prefer if you did it. I guess, so I would nominate Cameron Cosgrove for chair.
I'll second that. Or do we not second?
We're not
We just,
second, we
we
just-
just say yes. Or, okay.
I'm for it.
Or,
Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, can I collect votes? First, Commissioner Crandall,
Yes.
Commissioner McCann,
Yes.
Chair Cosgrove,
Yes.
Commissioner Camp,
Aye.
Commissioner Prescott Leffler.
absolutely yes.
Okay, unanimous that Chair Cosgrove will continue in that role, and I'll turn it over to you to collect nominations for the vice chair.
And thank you, everybody. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you for your work.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm
Yeah,
open to
great.
feedback anytime, but
No, you're doing a great job.
thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, let's take the nominations then for vice chair. I'll open those up.
Well, since they're not here, we should nominate at least one of them. I would-
I completely agree with that.
Maybe we could do a round of interest. Did you have interest in being vice chair, Bart?
I would
Scott?
like to nominate someone.
Okay,
No, who's not me.
okay. Did you have interest in it?
I'm happy to continue as vice chair.
Okay, and you,
I would nominate Dr. McCacken only because he.
Can we do that when he's not
can't
here?
bump up.
You can.
is that who you
Okay.
wanted to
That's who I
nominate?
wanted to
Okay,
nominate.
so we have a
Nothing personal.
Nothing
Yeah.
personal, but just, yeah, he's waiting in the wings, maybe we.
We
can
have,
bump
all
him.
right, we have a nomination for Gary McCacken to be our vice chair. Are there any other nominations? Okay, I'm going to close nominations for vice chair and take a roll call vote, starting with Commissioner Crandall.
Aye.
Commissioner McCann?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Commissioner Camp?
Aye.
And Ms. Prescott Leffler?
I'm an absolute yes, and this is why I'm here during nominations.
Ah, okay, good, to make sure you don't.
I don't want to miss, I don't want to be
All
the
right.
one that gets nominated when
So
you're absent.
we'll transmit a congratulations to Gary McCacken as our new vice chair. Now I'll open up nominations for Chair Pro Tem. Do we have interest here?
I nominate Steve Kemp.
Okay, we have a nomination for Steve Camp. Any other nominations? I will close nominations for Chair Pro Tem. Go roll call vote. So Commissioner Crandall?
Yes.
Commissioner McCann?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Commissioner Camp is an aye, and Commissioner Prescott Leffler is an aye. So congratulations on Chair Pro Tem. Thank you, everybody. That was smooth and easy. Item 9B is a selection of our Design Review Subcommittee. We have four, which is three that serve as active members and then one as an alternate. And I think, as we all know, the Design Review Subcommittee is advisory only. It's not an approval body, and they meet opposite Wednesdays of our meetings, the second and fourth Wednesday at 3 p.m. So who has interest in, currently, it's myself, Steve, and Bart. So let me just ask, before we open nominations, who has interest in being on the subcommittee? Commissioner Crandall does.
I'd be interested in being an alternate.
Alternate? I'm happy to continue on and see if you've expressed interest. What about you, Karen?
I'm good with what is being proposed here.
Okay, then I'm going to, should we just do a motion then, Jonathan, for this and make it on the appointments?
So the motion would be for the members of the subcommittee, but then we actually need to have the subcommittee select the chair and vice chair.
Okay, what about can we do a motion with the alternate as well?
Yes.
Okay,
Can I make a comment first?
Yeah.
before we do that? I just want to say on the record for the vast and thriving audience out here, that I think that we are extraordinarily blessed to have you guys on the Design Review Subcommittee.
Lot of talent.
Extraordinarily blessed and lucky. And I know it's significantly extra work, which I appreciate, but the level of expertise that you guys bring, just to, with architecture, with historical knowledge, with, Spanish colonial revival, with common sense, we are so lucky. And so I'm thrilled if you guys want to stay on serving that.
oh, thanks. I can say this, there's no personal opinion. It is all based on guidelines and standards. And we are lucky, we have two professional architects that I think add a lot of value to those reviews as well.
Makes the planning go much smoother when
Yeah.
it comes, when I trust the committee.
Right.
And when it comes before me, it's already, there's a good reason for what you do.
So Karen, I think maybe it's appropriate if you make the motion then for the three, and then Scott is the alternate, and since you're the only one not on it, maybe that might be
All right,
most
so I'll
appropriate.
just start with Art. I motion, actually, I just motioned all
You
three.
can do the whole group
The whole
as one
group with
motion.
with one alternate and Scott being the alternate. How's that?
Okay, so
That's
your
my
motion is Steve Camp and Bart Crandall, and myself as the primary Design Review Subcommittee, and Scott McCann as the alternate. Okay, I'll second that. All those in favor? Aye. Passes unanimous. Great, congratulations to the four of us. Jonathan, do we want to just agendize the chair and so forth at Design Review, or do we do that tonight?
You can handle that this evening as
Great.
well.
Okay,
And then I don't vote this year.
Correct.
Okay.
Steve's the
yeah.
current chair, you would lead the vote.
Yeah, do you want to open up nominations then? Well,
Well,
I guess we should have the staff maybe do it, right? That'd be the proper way.
On a technicality, yes.
Yeah.
So following the same procedure, and it would just be between the three that are the permanent members. So amongst the three, is there a nomination for chair?
We'll nominate Steve Camp as chair of the Design Review Subcommittee.
Are there any other nominations? Hearing none. Commissioner Crandall?
Aye.
Commissioner Cosgrove?
Aye.
Commissioner Camp?
Aye.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Commissioner Camp, I'll hand over the vice chair nomination to you. Or do we have a vice chair for design review? I don't think we do.
Oh,
We do.
oh, we do.
Okay.
On the rare occasions you can't make it, and it's the two of us, you want to open up nominations then for that?
Yeah, I nominate, Bart, did you want to serve? Sure. Okay,
Yeah,
I nominate Commissioner Crandall as vice chair of Design Review Subcommittee.
I move close nominations. So you can call for the vote then, I guess.
Oh, all right. All those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
All right,
A beautiful moment.
okay.
So
Oh,
special.
Thank you, everybody. Okay, that was smooth and easy. City Council, take note. That's how it's done.
And just a quick one, Jonathan, in our list of what's going, let's say, new business,
Yeah, it's going to move us to item 11, which is reports of commissioners and staff.
it said for some reason that it was for 2 years on the schedule.
TFA?
It says for 2 years on the Design Review Subcommittee. Is that in error?
Oh,
Give me one moment to confirm.
yeah.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
That seems like a mistake.
Unless that's something new. Because Steve and I only have 1 year
One year
left.
left.
Right,
Yeah.
that's right.
Well, you guys could vote to nominate somebody for a one-year term.
The code provision in administrative functions does not designate a term length. So I would say that that is an error. We'll stick with consistency for the
how it's
commission
been.
nominations and do it as 1 year.
Yeah.
Nice catch.
Okay, so we'll update the template so we don't have that on there next time. You got that, Tamara can do that. Okay, so item, I guess we're good now. 1 year is the understanding there for clarification. We have one more item before adjournment, which is our reports of commissioners and staff. Does any commissioner have any reports or questions they want to ask of staff? Seeing none, none, none? Jonathan, did you have any updates for the commission?
Just one follow-up from a prior meeting. One of the items that was continued was the discussion of the Ole Hansen Beach Club. Staff did have a community meeting at the Ole Hansen Beach Club last week for about an hour and a half with neighbors and our tenant at that space. That's on the agenda for later in August, about a month from now, but we did receive feedback that we'll be taking into consideration from that meeting. So just reporting back that that has occurred. And then on a staffing note, just as an FYI, our HR team has opened up our senior planner vacancy, so that's live now. So if you know anyone that you'd like to encourage to apply, that'll be open until through the first couple weeks of August, and we'll conduct interviews at that point. That is all that I have to report today. Thank you.
Jonathan reminded me that I am curious about the Miramar.
Yeah, so we have reached out to them and had a couple of site visits. When I say we, it's the collective we. I was out of town when that occurred, so it was our senior planner. Actually, Zach is now our principal planner. And I believe that we had the city manager visit as well. They have provided a timeline of expectations. The most visible change, I was out at the site yesterday, and I did see people on the roof working on the venting, which the commission reviewed the modification to the venting. So the next milestone that they've indicated is a goal of having exterior work commencing and underway significantly in September. So some of the exterior stucco, et cetera, that they would start working on that. So that's where we are currently on.
Did they have a projected timeline as to when they would be finished?
There's not a final projected timeline. They did provide a 30-day out timeline, which I'll share that with the commission by email. And the building permit itself expires in November. So if they don't complete work by November, then at that time, the city would have an opportunity to discuss the reasons for extending that or not.
Okay, thank you.
On the TFA, so it looks like our next meeting is canceled October 7th. October 21st, on the bottom couple items, it says no NOPH. I assume the PH is public hearing. What's NO?
So, I don't know if you want to explain that, Jonathan. They were continued items, they were continued at a meeting to a specific date, so we don't have to do a public notice.
Okay,
That's more a note to me.
Okay.
So that I know when everyone knows that we don't have to do a mailing and publication.
okay, got it, thank you.
So, did you get your questions answered? Looks like we're meeting August 21st.
August 21st, yeah. August 7th, looks like it's canceled.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
yeah. Is that correct, Jonathan? We will be adjourned to August 21st?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? Questions for Jonathan?
What is the study session for that meeting?
We don't have one proposed, and I probably won't add one in for that meeting since we are expecting a fairly heavy agenda with some of these items that are coming back.
should we start at 5 then, or?
I like that.
If the commission would be interested in that, we can work on that, yes.
Does that create a noticing problem for you?
If we, give me one moment. So would they continue to date certain? I don't know if they identified the hour of commencing.
Then we'd probably be okay. We can look into it.
we've been, yeah, we're into 10 days out, more than 10 days out. You could put new notices out, I guess.
Well, but that's expensive if they've already, to renotice is expensive.
So we'll take that into account, and so long as there's not substantial noticing impacts, then we'll move that to 5 PM as well, and we'll certainly notice all of you as soon as we make that determination.
Okay,
How would you like that motion then?
move it to continue.
To adjourn to when, to the date, but what time? Leave the time either 5 or 6? How do you want to do it?
We don't normally adjourn to a certain time, do we? We just say the date.
We could just adjourn to the certain date if you want, whatever, what do you
That's
think?
fine, just adjourn to the date.
Okay.
I move that we adjourn this meeting, and that our next planning commission meeting will be held on August 21st, 2024 in council chambers.
I'll second.
We have motion by Commissioner McCann and seconded by Commissioner Camp to adjourn to August 21st. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. We stand adjourned.